You're live, Your Worship.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, members of council, members of our staff that are joining us. Council has just returned from in camera, and so we are commencing with the meeting. Sorry, we're a few minutes late. I guess we're more than a few minutes late, aren't we? Is it 5:55, right? 5:51 right now? Sorry about that. Sometimes in camera takes a long time. So council, we have a full agenda. I would like to start off, this is March the 7th. First of all, it's been 2 years since COVID began. It's also been 2 years since Councillor Janine joined this council. So I want to congratulate and thank her on her 2 years of serving here at Municipal Council. And it's also been probably 2 years in the works to get to our land acknowledgement. And I know we have it here in our agenda now, and this is an opportunity to raise it and use it in every month. I would like to do. It's a voluntary thing to do, and I think this council supports use of the land acknowledgement for our Indigenous peoples in our community. So I wanted to read that now, and then we'll commence with the meeting. We'd like to begin our meeting by recognizing the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples of Canada as traditional stewards and caretakers of the land. We acknowledge that Cree Township is located within the boundaries of Treaty 18, the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Tita-Tinati, and the Wendat, and is the home of many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples as part of an intricate nationhood that reaches across Turtle Island. At this time of truth and reconciliation, we welcome the opportunity to work together towards new understandings and new relationships and ask for guidance in all that we do. So thank you, council. All right, item number 1 was our item to go into closed session. That has been completed. So at this time, we're going to go to item number 2, approval of the agenda. Before I read that, I do want to acknowledge that the Deputy Mayor has asked for a point of privilege to have item number 11 moved up. I would suggest, council, that we add it onto our agenda immediately following disclosure of pecuniary interest. And so the Deputy Mayor would ask that item 11, which is in regards to a 11.0, which is a motion that the Deputy Mayor is very passionate about and would like to deal with forthwith. We will do that with your approval of the agenda as amended. Recommendation, be it resolved, the Council of the Township of Fairview hereby approve the agenda as amended, dated March 7, 2022, as presented. And can I have a mover and seconder on the agenda, please? Councillor Leishman, Councillor McKechnie. Any further questions? Seeing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? That carries with the amendment. Item 3 is our disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Hey, hello, Councillor Leishman. Would you like to say something?
Yes, I cannot approve the minutes of February 24th. I was not there.
Fair enough. Thank you very much for that. Anything else with any members? All right. Okay, if any disclosure comes up during the meeting, please bring it forward. We'll deal with it as we do right away. And thank you for keeping that in mind. All right, members of council, I'm going to draw your attention to page, is it 3? No, page 4. Yes, page 4. There's a council resolution here. It's item 11. So how about Barry, I read it, and then I'll look for a mover and seconder, and then we can carry on. Is that okay, Barry? Good, thank you. Okay, this is a report regarding COU 002-2022. It's in regard to Station on the Green funding request. So I'll read the recommendation. Be it resolved, the Council of the Township of Fairview by 1, receive report COU 002-2022 Station on the Green funding request dated March 7, 2022. And item 2, that council approve providing funding in the amount of $5,146.36 to the Station on the Green for reimbursement of the installation of a new security system at the facility. And item number 3, that the expenditure be funded through the tax stabilization reserve. So we could have a good discussion on this. How about I look for a mover and seconder, and we'll go for it. Deputy Mayor will move. Mr. Broderick, the seconder. Deputy Mayor, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Your Worship. And as you know, the Station on the Green has been a very successful one of our small halls, if we want to refer to that way. And because of COVID, they have been unable to rent the facility out and earn some reasonable incomes. But expenses continue to happen, hydro, all that stuff, and the security system, which is a fire alarm, smoke alarm, heat, water, all that stuff is and illegal entry has been creating a problem for some time. It has been failing, and it became necessary to replace it. And it has more or less drained what reserves the committee has had for it, and we felt it was important to do it to protect the asset of the township. That's that system be installed, and and it is a monitored system, monitored fire, water, flooding, etc. So that's the long and short of it. The good news is we continue to receive money from the hydro company for our solar panels, so that's been helping to pay towards some of the costs. So it hasn't been a total loss, and I'm happy to say that the Clareview United Church has committed to coming back to the facility once I guess now that some of the restrictions have been lifted. So moving forward, we're feeling very positive, but just at this time, we just feel it's necessary for that assistance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Does anybody have any questions to Barry on his report? Yes, Councillor Walker. And then before we do that, I just want to give heads up to Terry Vachon, perhaps Kelly, our treasurer, and our recreation persons. I may have some questions for them. Go ahead, Mr. Walker. Nice to see you today.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question. In the past, when the small halls have asked for financial assistance, a lot of the times we have had a split cost where we split the costs with them for various things. So I'm wondering, was this the total cost of the full repair or the total of new installation? And if so, I would like to see us just cover half like we have in the past in other halls when it's been maintenance items or upkeep items. And my second question is, why through the tax stabilization fund? Just a question of financial. Thank you.
Good question. Deputy Mayor, do you have any thoughts on some of that?
Yeah, I can comment then, and thank you, Councillor Walker. That is the total cost, and the reality is they're not even in a position to financially cover the half. And the bill's been paid. It is drained the account significantly, and we need to get reimbursed as quick as possible. I talked to our Terry Vachon, our director of Parks and Recreation, and we more or less both agreed that the fastest way of the solution was through the tax stabilization fund.
Okay, thank you, Barry. Councillor Walker, anything further? No, anybody else?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry,
Robert.
Your Worship.
No, you have the floor. Go ahead.
If they're not in any situation to pay for half, then I might suggest that maybe they need to look at their rental rates once we get things rolling again. As all our halls maybe need to look at rental rates and keep things relatively equal in all these small halls to cover some of these costs down the road as we get older. Our buildings get older, more maintenance is required to look after them and keep them in pristine condition so that they can be utilized. So anyways, I'm fine. I'm not happy with the full amount, but that's fine.
If I may respond, Your Worship. So you're absolutely right, Councillor Walker, and that's something that was discussed at the last meeting, that we definitely need to review our rental rates, and we need to put increases into our rental rates. And that was moving forward. I mean, we have to face the reality. COVID just crippled us for being able to do rentals and do anything. And then it looked like we were going to get a break, and then we didn't get a break. So it was. But I understand what you're saying, Robert, and definitely we will be looking at increasing our income and increasing our rates. But I will add that one of the successes is that we still have income every month coming from the from the solar panels and the hydro that creates. So that helps keep things moving. This was just an unexpected expense that had to be paid rate. It had to be dealt with, and it couldn't be put off any longer. So, but I appreciate your comments, Councillor Walker.
Anybody else with any questions to Barry or staff? Yes, Mr. McKechnie, go ahead.
Yeah, so I will support the motion, but I'm not happy about it either. And I agree with Robert. I mean, we just came to the council back a few months ago asking for money for the Duntroon Hall, and I was told only half. And I look at I have two halls in my ward, and they went into COVID, and they're coming out of it with exactly the same amount of money in their coffers. So, and they've been getting, and they don't have, the solar panels on the roof either that they're getting income from. At least I don't think they do. Anyway. We're sort of backed into a corner here. I will support it, but I'm not happy about it. And I think if you could take that back to the Station on the Green Hall Board Deputy Mayor, that some of council are not happy about it. And, we feel we're backed into a corner on this one. So thank you.
Sorry if I may, Your Worship, I will certainly pass that information on. And
thank you.
Okay, anybody else with any members of council? All right, seeing none, if I can, I'd like to go to Terry for a quick question. Good afternoon, Terry, nice to see you. Terry, all of our halls obviously had significant losses of income during COVID. I know that we did see a little bit of funding from the province for recreation services. I believe it was focused on our arenas and so on, but I wondered if you had a comment on any of that funding that came our way from the province regarding recreation. And as an aside, I'm very grateful to the province who supported us in a lot of ways, certainly with the transit funding and so on, and bump ups and other funds. I just wondered if you could comment on some of the initiatives that you worked with or you received from the province regarding funding for recreation services.
Thank you, Your Worship. Unfortunately, I'm not aware of any funding that we received for recreation specific purposes. But we did receive some funding from the province, and Your Worship, I'd have to defer to Ms. McDonald to perhaps explain that, because it actually went through finance. And finance department were actually the department that actually cash rolled or those projects that they supported. So unfortunately, I can't answer your question, Your Worship, and I would ask if perhaps Ms. McDonald can elaborate for us.
Terry, I'm sorry, I might have been politicizing things because I knew that we did not receive anything specifically for recreation. And so I was making a point that we should have for certain. Right across the province, how many municipalities have recreational facilities that were shuttered and if not shut right down and lost virtual income, when all of our recreational facilities, I wouldn't say all, but let's just say the majority of recreational facilities run in the red anyway. So Kelly, do you have any comment about any of that funding that came from the province? I know that you have to fill out an awful lot of reports for the money. So I'm not trying to add more work there, Kelly. What's your thought?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, we did receive $382,000 for 2020, I believe, and then an additional $77,000 in 2021. However, there was nothing earmarked for our recreation. It did eat up a large chunk with all the lost revenues.
Yeah.
But it was more organization-wide to offset the operating effects of being shut down for that long.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I think that's something that we should talk with our local MPP about, if not members of the province to talk about, because certainly we're not the only municipality that saw that. So another comment. Thank you, Kelly. I appreciate your input. Terry, if I can, just to be clear and clarity, we're going to be talking about our small halls here in a little while in this meeting. But those buildings are the assets that are owned by the corporation of the Township of Clearview, and this security system is providing a level of confidence to both you as a manager and us as council that the facility has smoke alarms and fire alarms monitored, which is part of the expense that the deputy mayor was speaking about. So it's do you have a comment about the value of that, having our halls monitored? Is it something that you would want to see us do, perhaps, given that we have a decision to make about significant renovations? Terry, do you have any comment about protecting our halls?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Not much more to add to what you already mentioned, Your Worship. You did a really good job there, kind of capturing the value of our facilities. Again, like you said, this evening we're talking about the AODA renovations, and so yeah, the value will obviously go up. I'm not completely aware if all of our halls have a security system like the Station on the Green. I mean, I commend the Station on the Green board for having that service and having that extra protection. But I'm not familiar if all the halls have them. But it's definitely it's something today that might be required. We know through recreation, Your Worship, that there are a lot of our facilities that are getting vandalized, and there's a lot of damage being done to some of our buildings. We're usually pretty quick on repairing them and getting them fixed. So it is something that might be required, but I don't think it's the same across the board.
All right. Thank you, Terry. I see that's triggered a few members of our council who want to speak. How about I go to Phyllis first, and then I'll go to Councillor Leachman. Hello, Councillor Denny.
Hi there. I'm just wondering if we paid for the full shot, but some of that was recoupable during the year once funds are available. I know that with the Ottawa Hall, when I came on the board, and I don't even know what it was for, but I know that we had a payment to make back to the township for some renovations that were done. And it's just a thought. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Leachman, do you have a comment?
Yes, I have no problem supporting this because I know that those washrooms are used by the public in the summer when we're fully open. So to have a security system makes sense. I don't know of any other hall that has a washroom that's open to the public other times. So I think that's a good idea in Creemore, especially with the population they're getting, which is not that they're vandalized population, but they're a lot of people coming into Creemore. So I have no problem supporting this.
All right, thanks, Councillor. All right, if there's nothing further, my last comment would be before I call the motion that this security system is a replacement, as the Deputy Mayor has outlined. It's a replacement of a system that was there. That system, I can affirm that there was a case where the OPP investigated of some vandalism that happened in and around the building, and the OPP did access the footage and were able to execute a better investigation. And I didn't follow up, but I do know that there was a full investigation that they were looking at, and so it was additional evidence that they used. That system is now, of course, not in service, and so the new service is in there. So we would expect that that would be a positive thing for the future if the OPP needed to access it as well. Okay, members of council, we had a good discussion. There's nothing further. I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? Duly noted, and that'll carry. Thank you very much, members of council. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for bringing that forward, and please send my regards to the volunteers at the Station on the Green. And also, the Deputy Mayor has advised me that he would like to leave the meeting at this time, so we want to wish Barry all the best, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the days to come. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Burton. All right, Madam Clerk, if you could just record that the Deputy Mayor has unfortunately had to leave our meeting. And so we're going to go back to our regular agenda. All right, members of council, I need to go back to item number 4, which is still at the top of page 2, public participation period. Okay, so I'm going to read this again, which is the comments about public participation period, because I do know that when I got into the office here today, there was a few emails that were a little confusing about public participation. So I want to be very clear with the public that we offer this opportunity, provided that they use the tools that are available to actually administer delivering public participation. Be advised that comments and views expressed under public participation period are not the views of Clearview Township Council or the administration. When written comments will be received, they will be received until noon on March the 7th, 2022, in this case. And please note that any submissions received after 12 noon will not be added to the March 7th council agenda. And for future public participation periods, to submit a comment, the public must use the public participation portal on the township website. It is clearly listed on our agenda, and it's also available on our website. And so they must use that portal to access delivery of their public participation period. Now, council, fortunately, there was a a member of the public, Mr. Gord Ziegel, who submitted a rather, if you don't mind me saying, a large package of information, which included a letter, which has some very detailed information in regards to our Clearview traffic calming policy, as well as our traffic assessment study that's been done. Obviously, there's going to be some work moving ahead that we need to do with these two tools that are now presented to us as counselors and staff to be able to exercise their abilities to help keep our roads safe. Mr. Ziegel's letter is quite detailed. I would hope that all members of council have had an opportunity to read it. I don't feel I need to read it out loud. While he did ask for it to be read out loud, it's not sort of the policy and the procedures of public participation. But I do want to just refer to a couple of small items that he brought up, that he believes that there is some evidence that our policy, the Clearview traffic calming policy, while he considers it a valid policy, was not perhaps followed correctly when it comes to our decisions that we made in 2 previous council meetings in regarding traffic speed reductions. And so he questions that. And further, he questions whether we pass a bylaw, whether that bylaw to actually execute a change in speed limits on any road after this policy has now been accepted, whether it would be valid and whether it could be overturned. And he cites section 273 of the Municipal Act. So I've read this, I have considered this information, and I think that we need to, as council, receive this information as public participation, and respectfully thank Gord for sending this in. And I know that he has been working with a group of people to bring this information forward. And I would hope that council members will consider this when we move to the section on our agenda where this road discussion comes forward. So with that said, I would like to move on and thank Gord for his submission of item number 4.1 to our agenda for tonight. All right, council. Excuse me. Deputations presentations, item 5, there is none. Item 6 is our public meeting, there is none. And item number 7 is approval of the council meetings. And Councillor Leishman did indicate she cannot participate in the Feb 24 minutes. Is that correct? Yeah, that's the one you said, Councillor. Okay, thank you. So be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby approve the minutes of the following council meetings as presented: February 7, 2022, February 24, 2022. It was a special meeting. I have a mover and seconder on the minutes. Mr. Walker, Mr. Lamers, and is there any questions? Thank you. I'll call the motion. All those in favor? Thank you. Carries. Moving on to page 3, business arising from the minutes. Is there any business, council members? Seeing none. Communications from the mayor. There's no closed session report, first of all, which is item 9.1. Item 9.2 is the AMO support resolution. This is something that's been going around a couple of municipalities. Certainly joint and several liability is a big topic. That's why there's a big resolution that takes up a full page. So I'll read it to you and we'll have a discussion. Okay, whereas municipal governments provide essential services to the residents and businesses in their community, and whereas the ability to provide those services is negatively impacted by exponentially rising insurance costs, and whereas one driver of rising insurance costs is the legal principle of joint and several liability, which assigns disproportionate liability to municipalities for an incident relative to their responsibility for it. And it says, whereas the government of Ontario has the authority and responsibility for the legal framework of joint and several liability, whereas the Premier of Ontario committed to review the issue in 2018 with a view to helping municipal governments manage their risks and costs, whereas the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, on behalf of municipal governments, has provided recommendations on this source document to align municipal liability with the proportionate responsibilities for incidents and capping awards. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Township of Clearview does hereby support AMO's recommendation, and further be it resolved that the Township of Clearview does hereby call on the Attorney General of Ontario to work with municipal governments to put forward a plan of action to address joint and several liability before the end of the government's current term, so that municipalities can continue to offer high quality of services to their communities. Mover and seconder on this. Mr. Broderick, Mr. Lamers, thank you very much. Anybody have any questions? It's a pretty hot topic, to be honest. It's been talked about quite a bit. Nobody? All right. Thank you very much. If I may, I'd like to go to the treasurer, Madam Treasurer, Kelly, on this topic. Hello, Kelly. There you are. Hi, Kelly. On this topic, it does bring up the point about exponentially rising insurance costs. I know I should have asked you ahead of time to look this up, but what's our sort of difference of last year versus this year's insurance costs? Off the top of your head, or what are our round numbers?
Thank you, Your Worship. To answer your question, I would say we're right around 15% increase for the prior year, and I believe we were around 18 or 19 going into 2022. I could be off. I can get those exact numbers for you. But this joint and several liability has been a huge issue, and it's hitting municipalities across the board.
No kidding.
Yeah. Each time I did my comparison, I thought, wow, okay, well, we got lucky. And that's with a 15% increase. So.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Kelly. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I appreciate your candid knowledge, and it's very helpful. Members of council, is there any questions on the motion? All right. Seeing none, I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? And that carries unanimous. Thank you very much, members of council. Listen, there is one more communications from the mayor. I wanted to acknowledge that the passing of Ted Hannon, our former CAO. In fact, he was the first CAO of Clearview Township. Heck of a guy. I ran into him a few times when before I was a councillor, and had interactions with him as a member of the media, and he was always a pleasure to talk to, and always did a very good job of explaining things to me as a junior guy. And I do know this, that he remained committed to his community by volunteering. Certainly in the New Lowell area, he was very much involved with both the Legion and the Winterama festivities. So what a great loss. Our condolences for sure to the entire family, particularly to former councillor Debbie Bronny, who continues to serve our community as the chair of our Accessibility Advisory Committee. And so it was certainly a bit of a surprise. For those that aren't aware, we did lower the flags here at Clearview Township in honor of Ted Hannon, and I suspect they'll be down for a couple more days, and we'll return them to full staff, which I'm sure Ted would appreciate. So that's one report I wanted to bring. The other one, council, was that I have to tell you, I was very much shocked to be contacted by local media to hear the announcement of the Peace Naturals facility being shuttered at the end of the year. And the information that I've received is that they will continue to operate but are basically going to be closing their campus over on the 12th concession. There's certainly a bit of a shock. I was not given, or anyone here at the township was given, any notice that was proceeding. And frankly, that's how big business operates. Sometimes they don't bother contacting us, people who are the municipality that they're working in. So nevertheless, it was a shock, and our hearts go out to those employees and those hardworking employees who built a business out of a very complicated, highly regulated industry. And so we're thinking of those folks as well. All right, council, we need to move on then. We're going to go to county reports. The county, this is item 10, County of Simcoe It Starts campaign proclamation. I believe it's in here. There it is right there. There's a proclamation. There's also a link to the website there if you're interested. I have participated in this a couple of years ago, I guess it was, when county council was meeting in person. I participated in the lobby at the admin center there, the county admin center, and held up signs. I don't think I have any of those signs. Did I? I don't think they ever got sent to me. So I'll have to make sure that members of the council each receive them, and we get an opportunity to do some photographs with you holding the signs. So we'll look for that information. Yes, Madam Clerk. Hello.
Thank you, Mayor Measures. For you to the rest of council, we did get some digital versions of the signs. Okay. After tonight's meeting, we'll be dispersing them to council.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult to digitally distribute them and get them all printed so they look nice. So I know. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Another reason to get out of Zoom meetings, guys. I'll read the recommendation. Hopefully you'll give me your support, and we'll pass this. Be it resolved that Council of the Township hereby request that the mayor proclaim the month of March 2022 as an It Starts month in the Township of Clearview, and specifically March 21st as the International Day to Eliminate Racial Discrimination, encouraging everyone to take a stand and participate and learn more about the hashtag It Starts campaign. Mover and seconder on this motion, Mr. Broderick. Seconder, Mr. Patterson. Any questions? I will make sure you all get your cards. All those in favor? Thank you. That carries. I will be going to County Council tomorrow. The agenda, it doesn't look too complicated tomorrow. Hopefully it'll be a pretty straightforward session. We have been all encouraged to, by the warden, to wear our county ties. I didn't wear it tonight, but our county ties actually have, interestingly enough, and very coincidentally, have the colors of the flag of the nation of Ukraine already in the colors of the ties. So we got a memo from the warden to make sure we all wear ours tomorrow. So it'll be show a little support for the tragedy that's happening in Ukraine. And that's all I have at this time, except I have item 10.2, the Simcoe County Bursary Program recommendation. Be it resolved that Council of the Township hereby approve participating in the County of Simcoe Bursary Program by donating $1,000 to be funded from the Clearview Community Grants Program. And I have a mover and seconder on that. Mr. Broderick and Mr. McKechnie. Any questions? We've participated in this thing in the past, and it's a wonderful program. All those in favor? Carries. Thank you very much, Council. All right, now we have item 11. This is the county or council reports section, and we've dealt with Mr. Burton's item, so we're going to go directly to ward reports. This is a great opportunity for me to mute my mic, get a drink of water, and ask for Councillor Walker to update us first. Then I'll go to Dunedin and then Leishman. Go ahead, Robert.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nothing really as far as ward reports. Youth committee meeting will be later on this month. Other than I'm grateful to see that things are starting to open up and get back to a bit of normal life, even though we're still under some cautionary measures, but it's nice to be able to see the arenas opened up, restaurants opened up, that type of activity moving forward. So let's just hope everybody stays safe and caution, and let's continue to move forward and not go backwards. Thank you.
You are right. Wear your mask, hand sanitize, social distance. Thank you very much, Robert. Councillor Dineen, you're up, then Councillor Leishman, then Councillor Patterson. Hello, Phyllis.
Hello there. Not too much going on in Ottawa that I'm aware of. At any rate, nobody's really updated me too much in the last week or so. Ottawa Minor Fastball had their first registration at the hall last Saturday. I'm sure they're expecting more. I don't think anybody's quite in the mindset for baseball just yet. So that will probably happen again, or at least they will still take registrations. And just to note that we're going to do a craft beer, wine, and cider event at the Ottawa Hall, April 23rd. And I'll have a few more, a little bit more information coming from that after our meeting on Thursday. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dineen. And again, congratulations on your 2 years. Councillor Leishman, the most recent award-winning councillor and representative from the Clearview Chamber of Commerce Women in Business Award recipient, Councillor Leishman. Well done, Connie.
Well, thank you. I didn't do anything, no.
Yes, you did.
I had no idea the list of the people that were nominated. It was pretty impressive. I can't believe that I won that, because honestly, any one of those women are actually excellent business women in this township, and they give a lot to our community. So I'm in good company, yes, but winning it, I think they're all winners. So anyway, but thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate that. That was Clearview Women's Day, celebrating International Women's Day, and that was yesterday, and that was put on by the Clearview Chamber of Commerce, and it was a really nice event. And thank you to Mayor Measures for giving the introduction and the welcome. That was lovely and warm. it was just really nice to be with a bunch of women that are very successful. I'm thrilled. So I also want to mention that I was at the Collingwood Mayor's Levee on February 27th because my daughter, Ivy Martin, received the Order of Collingwood for organizing the Girls Hockey League in Collingwood, which incidentally includes about half of the girls are from Clearview, which is really nice because they love hockey and I love hockey. So it's nice to go and watch. It's great games. The other thing is that the community spring and summer activity guide came out in the mail. We got ours last week, so watch for it. Don't throw it away. It'll give you all kinds of information you might not have, especially people that have just moved here. And and by the way, mark on your calendar, May 14th, that's the grand opening of the Stainer Branch Library, our award-winning building. So thank you. That's it.
Well done, Connie, and well done to your daughter as well. Thank you for sharing that with us, and I'm glad you were there, both representing your daughter and representing Clearview. Thank you for doing that. Councillor Patterson, you're next, then Mr. Lamers and Mr. Broderick. Hello, Tom.
Hello, thank you. I'll start off with our highlights, if you like, from our NVCA board meeting, and I will just indicate, perhaps as a friendly notice of a report that I'm preparing on behalf of, I think, our involvement with the NVCA to transition now to the new regulations for conservation areas, and as we work with the MECP, the ministry, to adopt the new act, the amended act. It's quite a it can be quite a lengthy and I think a very I hope an interesting exercise that we're going. You can't simply do it as we have in the past with the budget, to have the staff come and give us a 15-minute process. So this is something that I will indicate in my report coming next meeting, that it will involve involvement of our staff, with the board staff, and hopefully, and that's what we'll talk about, a good level of work with our council, with ourselves. For example, it may be useful if council is interested in working at a workshop level. At any rate, the principles of it is, as you know, the new legislation has categorized the work that the NVCA, through us, our involvement, can do for the community, and the issues are categorized in terms of mandatory and the discretionary. And the mandatory ones are prescribed through the legislation. The discretionary ones result in signing an MOU, each municipality granting approval and funds to work at that level. So without getting into a lot of the detail, just to let you know that that's coming, and would like to gauge council's and staff support in doing this. I've also, we're on this Thursday, we're meeting with residents on a portion of Caroline Street, the western portion from the bridge to concession 5. Dan and myself are convening a meeting to outline the possible implementation of our traffic calming policy in that neighborhood, and in response to their request to do something about some traffic difficulties. So that we're doing that. And just as a matter of note to the community, based on what's happening in the community, last night we did have some water come up from the Mad River onto Langtree Street, which is a street that goes very short, goes from Edward Street to the shoreline of the Mad River. There's homes in there, and at least one home had some flooding, and another was endangered by the flooding on both sides of the street. I want to thank the Public Works people, Dan, to take my original notice, and Mike Ron for coming out and engaging with the residents and assuring them that we'll do something. It's caused by an ice jam east of the Collingwood Street bridge, just about where the old mill run used to be, that we now have as a little path in the Mad River Park. So that, and it's we looked at it last night and thought maybe we could do something. And when we saw it in the morning light, it was understood why the judgment of our staff was that we really could not do anything safe in there until we saw what was happening. So, again, I want to thank the crew. There's a couple of suggestions that have come from residents. Obviously, they're quite disturbed from it, and they are hoping for some arrangement from the township. And there were no commitments made, but I think it deserves a look, a see, and so we'll follow up on that. And I think I will pass on. Yes, it is a serious matter. When I was called to George Street a little bit later on that the water was rising on George Street because it was spilling over, I was met by a gentleman that was about to take a polar dip in the water on George Street. So there's all kinds of ways of adapting to a silly, serious situation. So find humor in everything, I guess. So, anyway, that's my report.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Yes, I also received some calls about the activity of the river, and certainly the ice jam. It's well known in history, isn't it, that ice jam does happen? Not every year, but it does happen.
No.
So, yeah, thank you for bringing that forward, and thank you for continuing to monitor the situation down there. And I know that our public works staff will do everything they can to continue to assist residents when they need it there. Thank you, thank you very much. All right, so moving on, Councillor Lamers is next, then Councillor Broderick, and then Councillor McKechnie. Hello, Mr. Lamers.
Hello. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few things happening last month. February 16th, we had the Brentwood Hall Board meeting. They are starting to get phone calls for bookings. We're just waiting for this accessibility report from Terry tonight. Everybody's going to be watching to see what's going on there and when we can start renting the halls, or if we can start renting the halls this year. February 17th, evening had their meeting. I missed that meeting just as we were ready to go into the meeting, my daughter walked in from New Zealand that we haven't seen in 3 years. So I opted to visit with her rather than attend the meeting.
That's fantastic. That's great.
It was a surprise. She never let anybody know. She just walked in the door unannounced.
Wow.
And then February 24th, we had a special council meeting. And then, like everybody else, answering phone calls and a lot of emails. And yesterday was one busy day with all that rain, or all the warm weather we had. It was unexpected that the wind would take the snow down that quick.
Sure did. Thank you very much, Councillor Lamers. That's great. I'm sure Donna was quite surprised, as you were too. Good
yes.
Good. All right. Thank you. Councillor Broderick, you're next, and then Councillor McKechnie. Hello, John.
Thank you, Your Worship. On February the 8th, I attended the Clearview Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting. Also on the 8th, the Creemore BIA meeting. February 15th, attended the Clearview Library Board meeting. And the 16th, the Clearview Chamber of Commerce meeting. On February 22nd, attended the Library Board CAO review. Also on the 24th, the special council meeting, and on February 25th, attended the Scouts and Girl Guides flag raising. Thank you.
Thank you. I've kind of forgotten. Boy, that seems like so long ago we did that little flag raising. Boy.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing that up. That's great. Yeah, that was good.
On
I'm
a
glad we
very-
did that.
Yeah, on a very cold, blustery day.
It was so, John. Thank you. And I'm happy that we were able to do that for the Scouts and Guides in our community. Thank you, John. All right, Councillor McKechnie, you're next. Hello. Doug.
Hello, Your Worship. Thank you. And not a whole lot to report. The most, I guess, significant meeting was the Duntroon Hall board. And I believe, and maybe I'm speaking out of school here, but the last I heard was that they are still planning on having a green beer day this year. You will recall that in March of 2022, 2 years ago, that was pretty much the last event. And then COVID hit. And so they decided that now that things are opening up, they're going to have it again. And so anyway, they didn't have any details at the meeting. And so hopefully it's still going ahead. And secondly, while I've got you, you may notice me turning my video off a little bit. I just changed. Let's just say I changed internet providers today. And so I've got a little bit of an unstable internet connection here. So anyway, it works better if I have the video off. So I'm still here, and but I'll be having the video off a fair amount. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor McKechnie. I look forward to the event at Duntroon Hall as always, and I'll look forward to seeing you there.
Oh,
all right, thank you, sir. You betcha. All right, Council. I don't have anything further to add. We do have a full agenda, so I think we should just get on with our agenda. But I would actually just want to give a shout out to all the members of our public works staff who have been dealing with high winds, heavy winter events, then sudden, thaws and water events, and our public works staff have been super busy. So I just want to acknowledge that they're out there working for us around the clock, and we appreciate them every day. So I just want to put that out there. All right, members of council, we're going to move on in our agenda. We're going to move directly to item number 12 in our report, which is our department reports and bylaws. And the very first one is something that we've been waiting for a long time. This has to do with our community halls and accessibility and the inclusion report. There are 3 items in it. There are a very long motion. Now, just to bring the clerk back into the meeting, if I may, Madam Clerk, just want to clarify that as you've heard me say before, I want motions that are completed. So I'm looking for some completion in the motion, and then I'll look for a mover and seconder. So the procedure will be, when we deal with these tonight, that these type of motions that are not complete, I'll read the motion as presented, and then we'll have a debate about completing the motion. Once we have come to the point where we have a complete motion, we'll then go for a mover and seconder. We'll try to reread the entire thing again, and that's when the call for the vote will happen. How about I'll just get us started here. So Madam Clerk, you just agree that's the procedure I'm going to follow tonight? Thank you very much. All right. Okay, so we have, be it resolved, Council of the Township of Clearview, hereby one, receive report, PCR 002-2022. This is in regards to Community Halls Accessibility and Inclusion Report dated March 7, 2022. And item 2, receive the RJ Burnside Clearview Hall Renovation Report dated Feb 25, 2022 for information. And item 3, the Council hereby schedule a special meeting to finalize the direction and next steps with staff as identified in the report for all 6 community halls. And item 4, the Council directs staff to implement the following staff recommendations from the report, PCR 002-2022. And in that report, Council, there are 8 very clear recommendations that come from Terry Vachon. We will debate them all or discuss them all in a moment. At this time, I would like to ask Terry if he would like to add anything. And I understand you may have brought some additional resource staff people with us. the folks from Burnside, and also an architect. So Terry, I'm going to pass it over to you, and then we'll come back and we'll have a discussion about your additional items that you want to put in the motion. Terry, take it away.
Thank you, Your Worship. And yes, I'm equally excited and happy that we're at this point in this project, Your Worship. As you know, we've been working quite heavily and hard on this report the last, especially the last year, probably more specifically the last 5 years. So yeah, my report is in two parts this evening, Council. The first part is I'm going to be asking Peter Mensinga and Jason Morgan to make their presentation on their report. We'll give Council an opportunity to ask them questions. And then at the tail end of the presentation and part of my report, we'll circle back to my recommendations that are part of my report. I'll share my screen as well, and we can go through those recommendations and also talk about the next steps that we propose for Council. So before I invite Peter and Jason, I also want to just remind Council and perhaps even the public out there that we've met with Council. We've had 3 public meetings in 2021, very productive meetings. I feel, if you recall, Your Worship, we talked about those thought bubbles and all the impact that this AODA renovations will have on the small halls. It's not just about the renovations; it's about the longevity of these halls. It's about the commitment of our volunteers. There's a lot at stake here with these renovations. Also, once we had direction from Council, we also went back, met all the hall boards, showed them the conceptual designs, made sure that we got all their ideas, made sure that they were totally in line with what the engineers and architects are proposing. And I'm very happy to say that today that all 6 hall boards have given us their thumbs up. They completely concur with the conceptual designs that you're going to see this evening. Obviously, they still have a lot of questions that has to be asked, but that will come next as part of our Council's decision-making process. So, Your Worship, without further ado, with your permission, I'd like to invite Mr. Peter Mensinga and Jason Morgan. I think they're gonna show themselves, and my understanding is Peter will share his screen and his presentation, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Excellent work, Terry. So just giving you the go-ahead. I see you've got Peter Mensinga. Hello, Peter. Nice to have you. And Jason is on there too. Nice to see you. And so please go right ahead. It looks like we're sharing a double sharing of the screen. That's cool. I like that effect. All right. Right on. This is the thing about Zoom, right? It's so powerful and yet it's so frustrating. So carry on.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. This is a culmination of lots of work, as Mr. Vachon stated. The report that I'm going to just spend a brief amount of time going over is an update to a report that we issued in 2020. At that time, we were asked to look at what it would take to implement the FADS, which is the Facility Accessibility Design Standards, to 6 of the existing small halls. What we've been asked to update in this report here is to look at what the current costing would be to go forward with the accessibility work. We also modified the FADS somewhat further from what we looked at in the 2020 report, and we've brought in other things too. So things like fire safety at the 6 halls. At a number of the halls, we looked at the existing septic systems too. And then in the meetings with the hall boards, there were certain items that the boards wanted us to take a look at, and those have been added in to the scope of work too. So I thought what might make sense in terms of presenting the report is just to review the work that was done in preparing the report. Look at what's changed from the 2022 report from the 2021, and then look at each hall and just give a very high level review of the work that we're proposing to do there. So I'm going to jump into the methodology first. So last fall, Mr. Vachon and myself met with the hall boards at all 6 halls. And the purpose of that was to go over the 2020 report, look at the work that we had proposed at that time, and then also speak with them about what some of their other asks were for the halls. Following that, we retained the services of Mr. Morgan for 4 of the halls, and that would be the Brentwood Hall, the Dunedin Hall, the Nottawa Hall, and the Sunnydale Hall. And the reason for that is as an assembly occupancy under the Ontario Architects Act, a architect has to take ultimate design responsibility for those occupancies. So we thought it was a good point to involve a architect to assist with developing the preliminary floor plans. For the Duntroon Hall, we worked with a architect that's well known to the hall board there, Mr. Lloyd Hunt. And for the Evening Hall, because work had been tendered back in 2017 and the modifications that were proposed did not differ that extensively from the 2017 work, we decided to just make notes on the existing architectural plans from the 2017 tender set, just to make a note of some of the modifications from the 2017 plan. And the purpose there was that it didn't make sense to reinvent the wheel when it came to the Evening Hall. So we met on site. There's no existing drawings for the halls except for the Evening Hall. So we measured out the existing floor plans for all 6 halls, and that gave myself and Mr. Morgan a opportunity to just review what the scope of work was for each hall, and to just bounce ideas around in terms of what might work best. Septic reviews were completed at the Evening Hall, Brentwood Hall, the Dunedin, and the Duntroon Halls. And at the Brentwood Hall, we also took a look at the stone rubble foundation wall there, because there's concerns in terms of what the condition of that foundation is. And part of the concern there too is the floor. There's sort of a crown at the center there. Just wanted to take a look at what the foundation was like there, and to try to understand just what was going on with that hall, and if there would be work that would have to be done that would fix that. So after the site work, we developed the preliminary floor plans, and the final versions of those can be found in the appendixes. I believe it's A to F of the report. Following that, we had a secondary meeting with the hall boards to get their feedback, and a revised set of preliminary floor plans were then sent after that. Once we had the go ahead from the hall boards in terms of what the floor plans looked like, that enabled us to develop costing for the 6 halls. And then the fruit of all that is in the report that we issued February 25th. So in terms of what's changed from the 2020 report to the 2022 report, that's found in section 3 of our report, which is on pages 3 and 4. And just at a high level, we've further modified some of the FAD's requirements, tried to take some of the more onerous requirements that wouldn't really improve the accessibilities of the halls out of that. And those are documented on pages 3 and 4. As I mentioned, fire safety is one of the things that we looked at too. I think except from Brentwood, every hall is a 2-story hall, and the fire separations from the lower level to the upper level of each hall was something that's not currently in place. So that's one of the big things that we want to deal with the reports, with the planned renovations that are in the report. And then some of the other work that we're looking at doing in terms of fire safety is in the kitchens, bring those up to a commercial standard, and that would also include a fire exhaust hood over Eddy ranges, so that if there was a fire on the stovetop there, that would kick in. It would vent the hall, and there's a fire suppression aspect to those hoods too. So that was pretty much common to every single hall. Some of the specifics to each hall, which I'll get into now, would be as follows. So with the Evening Hall, as I mentioned, looking at the septic system was one of the things that the hall board asked us to take a look at, and the proposed repairs that we did that were in the 2017 design, we were able to confirm that the proposed repairs at that time are what we can still move forward with. What we're looking at there is a balancing tank, and what that means is because the halls are not operated regularly, but there is an intermittent occupancy. With a holding tank, we can sort of balance the flow that goes into the leach bed, and that just allows us to size the septic system to something that's more reasonable. One of the other things that the hall board asked us to take a look at were electric vehicle charging stations. So if you look at pages 5 and 6 of the report that we issued, we give a bit of background on EV stations. There's actually three different types. Yes,
Peter,
absolutely.
Are you moving the screen, or are you just sitting on this frame? I'm just, because it's just sitting still. I'm not sure if you're moving or not.
I'm not. Nope.
Because you've been referring to various pages, so I wasn't sure.
Sorry, that's a fair comment. I'm
sorry.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. As I sort of move through, yeah, I'll be sure to move this along too.
Sorry about that. Go ahead, carry on.
No, thanks. So with the Evening Hall, as I said, EV charging stations is one of the things that the hall board wanted us to take a look at. So there's some information there in pages 5 and 6 of our report that just look at the various options there. And basically what we're looking at recommending is what's a level 2 station. So it's a step up from what a residential one would be. Level 3 are the rapid charging stations, but there's some technical limitations there that would not allow us to install that at the Evening Hall. So that's a very brief overview of Evening. We'll get into the budgets afterwards. I might just, yeah, I'll just keep advancing it this way. With the Brentwood Hall, it's a little more straightforward. Actually, I'm going to go to the floor plans. I think that'll be more useful than just the wall of text. So apologies for that. This is a proposed floor plan for the Brentwood Hall. You can see that in the green, this is the existing footprint of the hall. There's a utility room that's at the northwest west corner of it. So we're looking to expand on the west side of that hall, which would be the kitchen area here. And then to the south wall, this is where the bathrooms storage area would be. So in addition to the hall renovations, as I said, we looked at the structure underneath the existing hall. There is some work that is going to have to be done, and I'll advance to the photos in a second. But by the front vestibule, there's a pier there that looks like it's frost heaved. So we would want to replace that, and that's really what's caused the beams and then the floor joists that rest on that to be crowned up. One of the other issues that we found was on the south wall here. There's some deterioration to the stone rubble wall there, and we would want to fix that too. So there's some work with the existing structure. With the septic system, we're basically looking at rebuilding it. And there's a bit of a trade-off with the expanded parking that the board asked us to look at as well. So I'm going to actually flip over to the septic memo, because I think it'll make it clear what I'm talking about in terms of the new septic field. So this is a Google Earth view of the Brentwood Hall. There's an existing drilled well that is located to the west of that hall, and the existing septic bed is then located north. So we're looking at putting in a new tank and a new balancing tank just to the north of the hall, and then a new trenching bed at the northwest corner of it. And the reason why I want to locate it here is because the distance from the top surface grade to the water table's more at the northwest corner here. If we located it north, we would have to build up the field a bit more. And the existing bed is there too, so there's more that would have to be removed too. If there's sort of a biomat that is built up in the existing leaching bed, all that would have to be removed and then taken off site so that we could get a proper leaching bed in there. So this is a preferred location for it. However, we're asked to look at a few different parking options. And the three that we looked at were to expand the parking along the south boundary of the property line, and then also looking at how much parking we could have if we then also move that north. So that conflicts if we expanded the parking along the west boundary. That's obviously where we want to put the leaching bed too. So in that case, we would have to locate that north of the hall, and there's just some extra costs that'll be associated with that. As I said, because there's some issues with the distance from the existing grade to the water table, plus the existing field would have to get removed. So we built the costing in for that. And we can take a look at that once I talk about the different hall options. So the Dunedin Hall is next. And sorry, actually, before I move on to the Dunedin Hall, I did include photos of the foundation under the Brentwood Hall. So what you can sort of see here is what's the typical sub structure. So what we have are 2x12 joists at a 16-inch spacing. Those rest on these rough cut beams that are about one foot in diameter, and then those rest on these stone masonry piers. So what we found was that the pier, as I said, under the front vestibule, it looks like there's been some heave at some point, and that's forced this beam here up. And you can see that the floor joists, so they span this beam here, so they actually cantilever up, which is why there's that sort of bump in that crown in the Brentwood floor. So it's a pretty small area. I'm a big guy. It was hard to take photos. So hopefully this is fairly clear, and the descriptions with it make sense. But you can see in this photo here that the floor joist ends are about an inch up off of that beam, which accounts for that crown that we see in the Brentwood floor. This is a deterioration that I mentioned on the south wall. You can see that over time, quite a lot of dirt has just sort of leached its way into the crawl space. So that looks like it's been in a deteriorated state for quite some time, and this is what it looks like on the exterior side there. All right, I'm going to move on to the Dunedin Hall next. So once again, it's a similar scheme that we to the other floor floor plans. With the existing hall, we have that in green and yellow, and the new areas are then shown in blue. So we're looking to add to the hall on the northwest west side of it. There'll be a Lula elevator. Here, we're looking to add washrooms, and then the kitchen at the upper level. There's a stairway that's at the west wall that would get filled in, which would allow us to expand the kitchen. At the lower hall level, not a huge change. One of the existing washrooms here, since we're adding a new universal washroom in the addition, we don't require that one anymore. So the hall asks that to be turned into a storage space with a secondary exit out to grade. In terms of extras, in addition to the accessibility work, one of the concerns that the hall board had was that the existing roof is in poor shape. It's a metal roof, and there is rust that's starting to affect the roof. So it's probably getting close to the end of its service life. If the roof is replaced, that's usually a good time to get into the attic space at the same time, and the insulation could be topped up there. So we priced both of those into the budget. Some of the other concerns that they had too were around the parking. They were wondering if there was some additional parking that could be introduced at the upper level to the hall. So we've priced in that. And there's some work to regrade the existing parking lot that they wanted to be done too. So all of that has been priced in. In terms of the septic review, again, I'll flip over to the septic letter that we included in the report. So the noisy river runs just to the west of that hall. The existing leachate bed is in the 50-meter setback that is supposed to be in place from the edge of the noisy creek. One of the issues too is that the ground cover over bedrock is quite shallow. So the system has a capacity that is far less than what the hall needs. And there's really nowhere that a new leachate bed can be built on the site given the constraints of it. So what our team is looking to do is put in a new septic tank that would be sized to meet the hall's needs. And then that would get pumped into a holding tank, and that holding tank would then have to get emptied every several weeks because a bed is just not an option at this location. So that is the Duntroon, or the Dunedin Hall rather. The Duntroon Hall is next. This is the one where we worked with Mr. Hunt. So the floor layout will look a little bit different than the other ones that we have. With the Duntroon Hall, the existing vestibule that's at the front of it, there's a lot of issues in terms of making that barrier free. So we're recommending that gets removed and a new vestibule built in its place that doesn't have some of the awkward steps that the existing one does. So everything would be at like the same level, and that would provide access to a elevator that would then access both the upper and the lower levels of that hall. Most of the other changes to the Duntroon Hall would be to the kitchens and the washrooms that are at the south end of it, and making the stage accessible too. So this is the lower level of the hall here. So you can see that there's existing washrooms that are at the south end. Those would get removed. Currently, they're sort of located about 3 or 4 feet above the floor level of the lower hall, and the reason for that is so that it could gravity feed into the septic system. So that's just not going to be feasible if we put the washrooms down at the lower level. There'd need to be a new sewer sump pit that would then get pumped into the septic. And then the stairs, which don't meet code at the south end, those get rebuilt too. Just looking at the upper level here, one of the big issues is that the south stage is not accessible. So we're looking at introducing a ramp on that east side of it, and then rather than the big drop that is currently there between the south stage and the dance floor, we would have put in some stairs there so that you could walk up rather than having to use stairs that are quite limited at each side. The existing bar area would be left as it is. Washrooms and stairs would be rebuilt. Currently, there's some washrooms here. That's going to get turned into a stairway leading down to the basement, and then some of the empty space here at the west side of that stage will get turned into washrooms too. Then at the other end of that hall, we're going to reconfigure. There's a DJ. I believe it's a DJ space there now at this corner. That's going to get turned into storage, and that DJ spot moved a little bit to the west. So just trying to use that space a bit better. In terms of other work at the Duntroon Hall, there's septic improvements that need to happen there too. Let me just flip over to that. So similar issues to what the other halls have, basically that the existing septic bed is and the septic tanks are not sized for the hall's occupancy. So again, looking at a new septic tank, balancing tank, and moving the leachate field further to the west so that it can be properly sized. So that covers off the Duntroon Hall. Nottawa is the next one I want to cover. So again, looking at addressing the accessibility issues with an addition, and in this case to the north elevation. And just like most of the other ones, there's a few things that we're looking to do here. Universal washrooms would be introduced on each floor. There's an elevator that would provide access from grade to the two hall levels. One of the big changes for the upper floor is that there's a servery that is located to the north side of the hall now. That is going to have to be removed to accommodate the new addition. But that hall board decided that rather than maintain the existing stage, which it didn't sound like they got a lot of use out of, is that the servery on the upper floor would be relocated to that space, and then the washrooms that are there, we're just going to leave as they are. At the lower level, the existing floor plan isn't going to change too much. It's just that the addition provides a universal washroom plus some additional washrooms at that lower level too. The kitchen is going to get bumped out a little bit, and a secondary exit will be provided for it for deliveries and that sort of thing. And that's possible because a interior stairway is going to get removed. All of the access between the two floors will take place at this addition. In terms of extras, I don't believe Nottawa, it's really just a relocated servery. They're not on septic, so that was not an issue. They didn't have any other asks. So that's the Nottawa Hall there. And then lastly, Sunnydale. I've had a chance to meet with this board a number of times, and we already had plans that were partway underway at the time that we did the 2020 report. So we were able to just rework those. So similar to the other halls, there's an addition, in this case on the west elevation, It's going to check a lot of the boxes on the accessibility side that we've been seeking to introduce at the other halls. So once again, universal washrooms on each floor, a elevator that'll provide access from a new entrance lobby that'll be at the grade level, but then will then give access to the upper hall level and the lower hall. We're going to have to rework the stairs a little bit just to get the proper landing sizes. So there's some work to be done there. Kitchen renovations to meet some of the FAD's standards there. And in the upper hall at the stage, there's a little knee wall that is going to get removed at the north end of that stage, so that a hydraulic lift can be put in a place that will provide wheelchair access from the main hall to that stage. Again, not going to touch the existing washrooms. That's one of the further modifications that we've made to the FADs, and the fire rating between the floor levels gets dealt with that too. So the existing stairway at the back end of that hall will now be fire rated. Same with the split level stairs that are at the main entrance now too, so that there's no risk of fire spread from one level to the next. In terms of extras, again, I don't believe there were any additional asks at the Sunnydale Hall. Just looking at accessibility and fire safety.
Peter?
And, yeah.
Sorry, Peter, do you mind going back to the evening hall as well? I think you may have missed that one in the beginning, just to show council.
Oh, sure. Yeah, right. Right. It's when I wasn't, yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Thanks.
So as I said, we had a report there was a addition that was tendered out back in 2017. So rather than do a whole new set of drawings, we just modified those. So so the plan is there's an addition that's at the east end of the existing hall. That'll come off so that we can build a new one. At the lower level here, this is where the at-grade entry will be. This will be a barrier-free entry. Multi-stall washrooms that are also barrier-free will be introduced at the lower level 2. Again, some of the fire safety work that we're looking to do will be at the existing entry that's on the south elevation. This will be a fire-rated stairway now. Same with the front vestibule. That'll be fire rated too. At the upper level, we're looking at introducing a ramp from the existing hall so that we have barrier-free access into the kitchen area and to the stage area. The south exit is superfluous with some of the additional entrances that we have. So we're going to get rid of that because the existing stairs don't meet code and are in bad shape. And then at the north emergency exit, what we're looking to do there is there's 2 different options that we talked about with the hall board there. If an elevator is in place, this north exit is going to be rebuilt, and there will be an area of refuge on the north exit here, so that if there is a fire, anyone that is in a wheelchair can safely leave the building and find a refuge on that north side. If the elevator is not part of the work, one of the other options that we looked at then is to transform this into a barrier-free entrance. And what would be required then is that a ramp would be constructed on the north side, wrap around this east side, and discharge to the accessible parking that will be built at at the south side of the hall here. So there's a couple different options there. And in the pricing that I gave, we priced out both of those. So that's a brief overview of the scope of work that we're looking to do at all 6 halls. In terms of the cost, and I don't know how far you want to get into that, but in the executive summary showed what those overall costs would be. If you go to Appendix G, some of the options that I've talked about are further broken out there, but for the base scope of work and excluding HST, the costs are then shown for each hall. Avening having the largest budget, Duntroon and Nottawa kind of a close second at about $1 million each, and then Brentwood, Dunedin, and Sunnydale, roughly the same cost at around $700,000 for a total budget of a little over $5.6 million. So that's my high-level review of our report. And I don't know, Terry, if you wanted to open it up to questions, or if you want me to talk more, or.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. I think at this time I'll ask your worship to see if councilors have any questions for Peter, and he can leave his screen open if you'd like, your worship, or he can stop sharing. It's up to you. And then if council has any questions, Peter and Jason are obviously available.
Okay, I tell you what, thank you, Terry. Thank you, Peter. Thank you for taking your time to give us a high-level review. I would ask you to keep your screen open, because I would think if any members have any questions, we can quickly flip to your cards and slides that would assist us. Good job, Peter. Jason, we haven't heard from you, but I'm sure that you've seen significant work trying to put this together. So thank you for being there, and perhaps you can assist us with some of these questions if members have any questions. Okay, thank you, Jason. Members of council, I'm pretty sure I see everybody still on board there. Jump in. Who's got some questions about this this report and this big decision? Councillor McKechnie, I see you first. Go ahead, Doug.
Thank you, your worship. Just one question regarding the Duntroon Hall, the leaching area for the septic system. Will that affect the dog park? Will we have to take the dog park out?
Peter, let's go to that map.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So to be honest, I'm not sure of the extent of the dog park. If they are located directly south of the parking lot, certainly while that leaching bed is being constructed, yes, that would impact the dog park if it's in the area that's shown here.
Okay, and can the dog park go back in over top of the leaching bed then, after it's constructed?
I believe that wouldn't be an issue, but you know what? I'll run that by our on-site wastewater people. I'm a structural engineer, so I'm relying on their expertise around this. So that's a great question, and one I'll pass on to our folks.
Yeah, no go ahead, Jason's got something. Go ahead, Jason.
I was just going to say, Peter, we had constructed a leaching bed underneath a soccer field in Blythe, and it was quite usable after the fact, but I guess it's worthwhile asking the question because the design might be a little bit different anyway.
That was my thought too, but yeah. Before I sign off on that, yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thanks. No, that's good. That's all I need to know. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Members of council, anybody else? I see Councillor Lamers and then Councillor Deneen. Councillor Lamers is using the digital hand up. How you doing? Your microphone's off though. Go ahead, try that.
There, it should be on now.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, can you go back to the map for Brentwood?
Yep.
Now, how much room between that septic bed and the property line on the west corner?
I don't have an exact dimension there. Sort of looking at a 15-meter setback there, I'm going to estimate that's around 5 meters, which would be about 15 feet.
15 feet, yeah. I don't think we were talking about a parking lot in that north corner, just an exit off that west boundary line to the south boundary line. So as long as we have enough space between the property to get that in.
Oh, I see what I mean. Right, just like kind of run it there. We could even change the dimensions of the leaching bed a little bit, so they're not quite this far over. That probably wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, just if it can go over, I don't know how much you need for a laneway width along the boundary line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm not familiar with how much of a setback there might have to be at the property line anyways. That's certainly something that we can look into when we get into the detail design. Yeah, that's something that we could look at, sizing this bed a little bit differently. So even that if it's located here, if we have the parking along the south boundary here and just a laneway up there, that we could make that work.
Yeah, just exiting off the side road rather than the county road makes sense at times.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's about it for there.
Okay, Councillor Lamers, you're comfortable then?
Yeah, I think everything else was pretty well right. Oh, except for the kitchen or the one washroom.
Can we go to the drawing of that area?
So we did get Terry's feedback. So Mr. Vachon did pass that on to us. Just find it here. So that will be part of the detailed design. It's just we were, by the time we got that feedback, we wanted to just get the report out.
Sure.
Okay.
But
so there's not going to be a problem with that. Switching those utilities.
No, that's right. That won't be a issue. Yeah, to have the utility room there, and then there's some talk about maybe a door between the kitchen and the utility room.
Yeah, just if they have tables or whatever for storage in there, just to get access.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, that's it. Thanks.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. And that's a good point. Back to the outside drawing, it's important to note that certainly the Brentwood Hall has had occasion to have some very successful outdoor events. And Councillor Lamers is correct that vehicles will travel and exit on our exit onto the side road. And that's a much better way to do it than using the county road. Certainly the card playing crew or the yoga crew who use the hall will just use the paved parking area up near the front. But when there's a large event, they do have a concern to make sure they can get traffic out onto the side road. I think it's a good point to keep that in mind. Good. Did I see Councillor Dineen and then Councillor Leishman? Or is that okay? Connie, or did you want to speak about this one? No? Okay, we're talking about Brentwood right now, so thank you. I'll go to Councillor Dineen next then. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a matter of statement, actually, about the Nottawa Hall. It is on septic. If you know a little bit more about it, Your Worship, if you wanted to make mention about that. Now, we do have a water system that comes into it. It's not on a well. It's on a shared well with the water system, the municipal water system from the McKean subdivision. But what I wanted to ask too was the floor plan there. Now, I was wondering, we had spoken about maybe not officially having a kitchen in there anymore, just having a servery, but I wasn't privy to any of these conversations with the walkthroughs or anything, and also about just having one serviceable washroom, like one multi-use washroom, and then keeping the ones upstairs. And you've got a couple more downstairs. That was something that was asked for by the hall board, or is that something that people don't use the kitchen that much anymore. Let's just put it that way. A servery, something simpler would have been serviceable. And I'm just asking what their asks were, if these were things they indeed asked for.
Okay, that's a complicated way of saying that we're unsure exactly what the volunteers asked for because we weren't part of that conversation. So I hear you.
And we had asked for just a simple washroom and like a servery, more like rather than a kitchen. And was that something that they came back and asked for?
Okay, let's go to Terry and or Peter. Terry, comment?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I would love to answer that question. Through you to Councillor Dineen. Yes, this is exactly what the Hall Board asked for. We met with the President, Jason White, on multiple occasions. We actually met on site and with Peter, and this is exactly what they asked for. We actually brought back the final conceptual designs to Jason, and yeah, he signed off on this is what the volunteers wanted.
Okay, all right. But again, we aren't on septic. If the mayor wants to elaborate on that, I'm not familiar with it, but we are on septic, pardon me.
Okay, so yeah, thank you. And thank you, Terry, for that clarification as far as the volunteers go. I also was not at that meeting, and in my previous role, I was very active on this board. I'm not as active anymore, but I don't mind saying that I'm a little biased because I live in that community and use that hall. So, okay, Peter, just for your engineering knowledge, if you were to look at the kitchen drawings immediately to the north of the kitchen sink, can you zoom in there a little bit? Just zoom in if you could. Right there. Okay, see the sink there on the left side of the frame? Immediately outside that, on the outside, obviously, is the septic tank.
Mm-hmm.
The septic tank in this facility is all fed from the second floor. This is on the ground floor. So the septic system, everything comes from the washrooms upstairs and or the little servery bar area where there's a tap there. There's a main pipe that comes out, it goes out, and it goes out the wall, goes to the tank. What's interesting to note is that those 3 sink beds are not connected to the septic tank. They go to a pipe that just goes out into the backyard, which is just associated. It does not dump directly into it. So there will definitely be some septic work that needs to be done at that facility. That was discovered by a plumber who came over because we had a potential flood brewing, that this line going out into the backyard was not draining. And this was discovered and noted and shared with our staff at the time. But I'm afraid that since I left the board, that may have been lost in the discussion. So Peter, I would ask you to take another look at the Nottawa septic situation.
Understood. Yeah, I'm sorry for that oversight.
It's okay. It's not an oversight. You probably didn't even know about it, so it's no big deal. But engineering wise, though, it's important. We want to make sure we do it right. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So that's the one thing that I think that, if this renovation moves ahead, if council supports these recommendations, obviously you're going to find a lot of these treasures, let's call them, of old buildings with modifications made that perhaps were not on the books. So for sure, you're going to find these in all these buildings. So we just need to be flexible enough to work with engineering, with architects, and with the good guidance of our staff who are overseeing the project. So these are some of the small things you might pop up.
If it's okay, I just had one other point about the washrooms. Councillor Dineen was mentioning the quantity of washrooms, and in some cases with these halls, the decision on quantity is actually directly correlated to the amount of people required in the hall. So you'll see an occupant load listed there of 90 people. So in the code, there's just a direct translation of quantity to the number of people in the particular hall. So we were in each case going through a chart and saying, how many washrooms are existing, how many washrooms are required to meet the occupant load. So we just wanted to make sure we were in compliance with the code on the quantity. So you'll see that's part of the logic for some of those increases as well.
Very good, Jason. That's a good point. Certainly, if we're going to be investing, if council supports investing in these, we want to be in compliance. So it makes total sense. Thank you for that. All right. Councillor Dineen, anything further on the discussion of Nottawa or anything else?
No, that's fine. Thank you very much. Thank you, Terry. Thanks for that.
All right. If you don't mind, I'm going to put on my former hat and ask one more question about Ottawa. It has to do with the electrical service that's into the facility. We do have solar panels on the roof, and they're serviced by the monitors and the transformers on the north side. And then the electrical service is underground from that point straight out to the pole that's located between the two driveways. It's actually on the property technically next door. So in fact, Peter, that electrical service would go completely right underneath that renovation you're proposing. So we may have a discussion about that electrical service, whether that has to be changed as well. Okay.
Yep, no, it's a good point. Yeah, and if that needs to be relocated, then that would be part of that work. So absolutely.
Yep. Okay, just putting it out there. That's some of these utilities we forget about because they're underground. We don't see them, right? Okay.
Yep.
Anybody else on Ottawa? Great. All right. Any Councillor Leishman, you had a question? Did you want to bring something up?
Yes, I'd like to go back to evening, please.
Evening.
Okay. Peter, could you tell me where if they decide not to do the elevator, where would the ramp go again?
So in order to provide a barrier-free exit from the upper hall, we talked about with the board. So because the ramp would require a 1 to 12 slope, if we kept the exit where it currently is, we probably wouldn't have quite enough run to get the ramp down to grade at the south elevation. So what we were looking at is relocating this further to the west. So what we talked about is potentially even putting it in this in the west corner here. There'd be a landing that would comply with the FAD's requirements, and then a barrier-free ramp that would basically run along this north wall. And I should point out too that the stairs here will not be running north, but they'll be running south to the parking there. But that ramp would make its way along the north wall, and then it would run it would run down this east side, and there would be a sidewalk here that runs along the south edge of the addition to the evening hall. That would tie into the accessible parking.
Okay, thank you. My concern was that if the ramp was going to be on the north side, there'd have to be some parking, and there really isn't except some rough parking. But if the start of the ramp is on the east side, then that's closer to the parking lot, and so the accessible parking can be close. Okay, thank you, Peter.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I got it.
You're welcome. Perfect.
Okay, we're getting through this, guys. Councillor Walker, did I see your card?
Yes, Your Worship. Yes, Your Worship. Just with regards to evening, why would you not locate the ramp on the south side? The north side with the winter time, I think, would be a nightmare. So, and your parking lot is already on the south. Is there not room for that ramp to go along the south side with that exit from the upper floor?
So that's a great question. Yeah, when I met with that hall board, we didn't really talk about the option of putting a south ramp in place. I think one of the challenges there is that that the length of that ramp, once you put in, so just based on that 1 to 12 slope is 84 feet in length. And then once you start putting in some of these intermediate landings, you would end up with this big switchback ramp that would be located on the south side. And I don't know how that would provide its own challenges too. So we really didn't hash out what a south ramp would look like, to be honest with you. But I think given the short run that we have here, you'd have to have a number of switchbacks that would chew up quite a bit of space on the south elevation where you have parking. So really the discussion was just in terms of what we would do on that north side.
Terry, go ahead, Terry Vachon.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Just to clarify, Your Worship, to Councillor Walker as well, is I think Peter explained it properly at the beginning, but the ramp was only if we would not include an elevator. So if you do have an elevator, there's no need for that ramp. The board, the Evening Hall board, wanted to explore the ramp option, and they wanted to have it cost out, which is what Burnside's has done. I have asked Burnside to not put the ramp on this design, to put the elevator, because it's also worth noting that that ramp will be outside. So from a customer service perspective, having to have a customer, like you said, in wintertime, have to do 80 to 100 feet worth of ramp, might be a challenge. So, and of course, keeping the ramp clean all winter is another issue. So, just to clarify, Your Worship, that it's an either or option.
Okay. Yeah, I was beginning to get a little confused there as well, but I see your point, and I'm glad to hear the input from the volunteers on this particular question. To be honest, I would always lean towards the elevator, given that this facility is well known for having concerts, and so performance equipment coming in and out. What a handy thing to have is an elevator to take that stuff up and down. From my previous career of carrying boxes up and down stairs, I'm very happy to see elevators show up in facilities like old churches that I have to go to. So there you go. Anyway, so anybody else with any questions on any of these? Yes, Councillor Patterson, nice to have you back. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. In my discussions with the board rep, I gather from him they're very happy with this this solution. Although they didn't bring up the option of having a ramp instead of the elevator, and that's a question that I had, and I think Terry has answered it. That the board was asking for the option to look at a ramp, but I agree that with Terry that I would if the board was thinking to make the operation cheaper, which I appreciate their efforts to try to keep the cost down. I agree that it might become a winter maintenance issue. So that would be my only comment. And I guess a simple confirmation for me and for, I guess, the other councillors that have been involved with the evening, Connie and John currently, John Lamers, just a simple statement confirming that the board is happy with all the changes that we're seeing here.
Good. Councillor Lamers, do you have something there? Did you want
No, from Terry. From Terry.
I'm sorry, from Terry.
I'm assuming if John had some issues, he would have raised them.
Sure. Okay, well, let's go to Terry first, and then we'll try John.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Patterson. Yes, I concur. We've had 2 or 3 meetings with the Evening Hall Board, and they are very pleased with this conceptual design. Of course, we need to make a decision with respect to an elevator or a ramp, but they're very pleased with this design, and they're very eager to get going.
Councillor Lamers,
yes, and yes, I would be remiss if I didn't repeat the request to be one of the 2 in 2022.
Well, we'll see about that. Councillor Lamers,
yes.
Did you want to confirm some of that conversation? I'm sorry, I have not attended some of the board meetings. I know you have, John.
Yeah, they were just at the beginnings, nobody knew very much about these elevators. So we asked Terry just to put the ramp in there and give us a quote on both. But with all the updates and everything that we're getting with the elevators, that's the way to go. And everybody is happy with the drawings that he's did. It's
okay.
It's a big addition to the hall, and it's going to be a big improvement.
No kidding.
And the only other thing is, have you got anything on there, Terry, for the septic system?
Yeah, did Peter have a septic review? That's a good question. On this facility, they got a big piece of property there for sure, Dave.
Yeah, sorry. So I don't have a site plan. We have, when we did the drawings back in 2017, there's a site plan that is part of that. So in this septic review memo, we were really looking at confirming that what we had designed in 2017 still met the current requirements. So they didn't, so our team didn't develop a separate plan similar to what we have here. And I don't have the 2016 drawings up on my screen here.
Okay, that may be something you further want to investigate. Along with your notes on Ottawa, I'd suggest we get some notes on Avening. Terry, you're familiar with some of the plans from a couple of years ago on that. Terry, do you want to jump in on that?
Sure, yeah, just to elaborate a little bit with what Peter said is the septic system was part of the 2016 designs, the improvements to that bed. So we do have some documentation back from 2016 of what improvements are required. So like Peter said, we didn't hire his team to revisit that because we already had notes back from 2016. So they're still pertinent today. Okay. And obviously Peter has it up there on the screen.
Okay, Councillor Lamers, is that comfortable?
No, yeah, that's good. I just didn't see anything, any drawings or anything on the back of the hall. So no, that's good that we have it there.
Good. All right. So back to Councillor Patterson. Did you have anything further than Tom? We just want to clarify those comments there.
No, thank you. I don't. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, we're good. Did I see Councillor Leishman again? Or no, Broderick. John Broderick. Did I see your card? Yes. Go ahead, John Broderick.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, with the evening hall, in the drawing, the elevator is to be on the south side, was it?
Yes.
Okay. Now, is there special needs parking also on the south side?
Yes, there would be. These are floor plans, so the work that'll be done on the site isn't shown on these. But if you look at the budgeting that we've prepared for this hall, that includes accessible parking south of the addition, plus a new sidewalk from the accessible parking to the new barrier-free entrance.
I'm just curious, should we not have some accessible parking on the north side as well? If that's where the elevator is going to be.
I think the elevator's on the south side. Yeah.
John.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the ramp runs across the north side all the way down to the east corner and then across the east wall to the parking lot on the south. And there is no parking and there is no road allowance between the building and the street there for parking.
Okay.
So everything will be brought around the building to the south side.
Go ahead, Mr. Broderick.
So that means the elevator will be on the south side.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. That's it.
Okay. Anybody else with any questions on any of the presentations so far? It's a lot of information. All right. Peter, don't go away. Or Jason, I'm sure we may have more for you. You could stop sharing though, Peter, because I'm sure that we've covered that portion. Terry, why don't you continue on with some of the details of your report? As I said some 35 minutes ago, I'm hoping to complete a resolution here and move on. So Terry, back to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't know if there's if Mr. Mensenga and Mr. Morgan have to stay, Your Worship, if they want to leave. I feel very confident in being able to answer any other questions, and the rest of my report is more around council decisions and actions. I guess if they have somewhere to go or whatnot, the weather's pretty bad outside.
I understand.
It's up to them, I suppose. But before they leave, Your Worship, I want to thank Peter and Jason, personally, they've been very flexible during the COVID shutdown. They've been able to work with us, the township, during the shutdown to save ourselves a year. We were already behind a year because of the pandemic, but Peter and Jason have done excellent work for us. They've been very flexible. They've been able to meet all of our volunteers and hall boards when required. They've been fantastic to work with. It's been a pleasure for myself to work with both of them, and I really appreciate the work that they've done for my job in my life. Much easier working with these professionals, so it's very, very appreciated.
Thank you very much, Terry. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. You are welcome to stay. We have a long agenda here yet, but you're welcome to stay if you want to hang out with us here at Clearview Council. We're always happy to have you. But perhaps you've got a little bit of work ahead of you yet, Peter, just to wrap up some of those questions that were posed. I'm sure you could work with Terry, and if there's anything, let's say, earth-shattering or all stop decision making, I'm sure Terry will bring it back to council. So I would encourage both of you gentlemen to continue to work with our staff, Terry and or our CIO. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you,
Okay,
Worship.
Terry, over to you.
Yes, so Council Part B of my report, we're about halfway, and appreciate your patience and time with this. As you know, there's a lot of information, there's a lot of moving parts, and I think it's crucial, Your Worship, that I go through these recommendations and next steps with Council so that Council fully understands the position that we're in and the information that you've received. So, Your Worship, I really want to concentrate on the two last motions as on my report, being the 8 recommendations that we provided. With your permission, are you okay if I share my screen and show the 8 recommendations so I can fully explain what they are? And then the next part will be to discuss the next steps, which is part of the second motion, which is to reconvene at a special meeting to discuss the next steps of it. So I will attempt to share my screen right here. Hopefully this works well. You guys see my screen, or is it not working?
Yep.
You see it?
It's a little small, but I can move it, make changes here on my local screen.
Let me try it again. 1 second. This might be a little easier. Just give me 1 sec, Your Worship. I'll make it a little easier for you.
Zoom.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish we were in person making these presentations.
No kidding.
They are a little challenging on Zoom, but we'll do our best. Is that a little bit better?
Yep.
Same. Okay.
Thank you.
So Your Worship, again, as part of my report, based on the feedback that RJ Burnsides has provided us, me and my team and my department have like to propose Council with 8 recommendations. Again, going back to the public presentations we did in 2021, as I mentioned, there's a lot of moving parts. There was a lot of thought bubbles. So there's a lot of action items that have to be covered. So without further, let me see if I can zoom in a little, or I can't. So my first recommendation, Your Worship, is for Clearview Township to continue to own and ensure all the 7 community halls and repurpose them from accessibility requirements as per the modified FADS standards that are included in the conceptual designs that are provided by Burnsides as part of their February 22 report. Those renovations would also include any septic tank upgrades requirements, as well as upgrades to the full kitchen fire code standards. Your Worship, through the process, I know Councillor McKechnie, Councillor Broderick, perhaps even Councillor Patterson had talked about the flexibility throughout this whole process of being able to decide, is it going to be 1 hall? Is it going to be 4 halls? Is it going to be all 6 halls? How many halls will Council want to renovate? Our recommendations is to renovate all of them at this time. Recommendation number 2, and again, Your Worship, if you want, I can go through the 8 recommendations and we can come back and I'll let you talk to Council or manage Council on how you want to debate these recommendations. Is that fair with you?
I tell you what, Terry, given the fact that members of Council have had this information, their recommendations are right there. Okay. I would ask if there's any members of Council have any questions on the recommendations that are presented. And I would like to hear some councillors give us some ideas of which ones they want to recommend to be putting into the part 4 of our motion.
Yeah,
So,
Worship, did you want to go
go
one
ahead,
at a
Terry.
time? Sorry, Your Worship, do you want to go one at a time, or do you want to do all 8 and then come back after? Or do you want
How about this? I'll Terry, stand by if you just jump in when we need you to answer any questions. Council recommendation number 1, that Clearview Township Council continue to own and insure all 7 community halls and repurpose them for accessibility requirements as per the modified FAD standards, including the conceptual designs provided by RJ Burnside's 2022 report. Renovations would also include any septic tank upgrades, requirements, and upgrade for full kitchen fire code standards. Anybody got any objections to that recommendation? Councillor Patterson, go ahead.
Thank you. I wouldn't classify my comments as objections. I may have misread the intent of recommendation 1 and 2. I wanted to. I think I would support all the halls being renovated if they met what I thought was the intent of recommendation 2. In other words, as we've been talking through this, both the resolve of our township and to renovate them all, and actually the interest in some of the hall boards to actually support the renovations has always been a question. So I thought recommendation 2 was a perfect way of resolving both of those concerns, in that all of the halls, all 6 of the halls would be renovated if they all agreed to the financial commitments. So I think I heard just a little bit different from Terry. Terry is saying that the staff recommends all of the halls. I don't think you meant it though unconditionally, did you?
I think it's just a statement. The recommendation, Tom, is a statement. If you look down to recommendation number 6, is what you're talking about, a financial commitment. That's recommendation number 6. I think the statement is recommendation number 1, continue to own, insure all 7 halls and repurpose them for the accessibility requirements based on the drawings. And the renovations would include septics and or full fire code upgrades. So that's a pretty clear statement in the fact that it doesn't have the details, but further details come out in the other recommendations.
Okay, if it, yes, they do. However, that statement includes any halls that couldn't see their way to financially supporting this.
Correct.
Okay, so that's the intent of it. So they still want the hall open, but they can't see fundraising for any part of the costs.
Well, I mean, recommendation number 1 is a statement from council. If council receives and supports recommendation number 1, it would be a statement from council to move forward that will clarify the ownership of the halls, clarify we're going to insure all 7 halls. We're going to clarify that we're going to repurpose them for accessibility requirements. We're going to clarify that renovations would include, if necessary, septic tank upgrades requirements, and also the full kitchen code requirements. That's the recommendation, just as a statement. It doesn't preclude us from adding any further recommendations, which you'll see later on in these other recommendations. So.
Okay, I just the fact that it doesn't mention the financial commitments leaves it open, if we approve that statement as it's written, to if we go down to recommendation 6 when we get there, if they say, well, we can't afford even 1%. I'm not anticipating halls to do that. I just don't. But if they do, we'll say, well, then we'll carry you for the 10 years.
I think, Councillor, if you reflect back on the thought bubbles that Terry and his team put together, council has to make some decisions, and we can't move ahead with recommendation number 6, or even recommendation number 5 without making recommendation number 1 first. Like, that's the first thing that we're going to do. We're going to make this, council is going to make a statement in a recommendation to continue to own, insure, repurpose based on drawings, septic tanks, and fire codes.
I've read it several times. I understand.
I'm suggesting is that's the recommendation, right? So the other recommendations fall into line if that's where we want to go. If council, and again, these are the thought bubbles that we presented And I'm sorry, I'm feeling a little tired about it all, only because I helped Terry present it at 6 different meetings, and it's been well talked about. And all of these layers were based on the input that came back from our volunteers as well. So
I can wait.
It's not perfect.
I can support our intent to keep them all open and not worry about the conditions that we would do that until we go through all the recommendations. But are we intending to vote on that and then that's final, or are we willing to come back to any of the preceding recommendations to modify them if, for example, we get into a discussion about cost sharing in 6 that doesn't really support the recommendation?
If I can go back to the original recommendation. All right, recommendation number 3 says that council hereby schedule a special meeting to finalize the direction and next steps with staff as identified in the report for all 6 community halls. So we will be going back to another meeting, and what that will do, we'll finalize the direction. What we need to do here is as I believe this, is that we need to have some of these thought bubbles either supported or eliminated so that we can continue to make some decisions within the parameters of the thought bubbles that have been presented to us in our lengthy presentations to all of our halls. And believe me, this is not easy because every hall is different, every building is different, and with respect, every volunteer board operates a little bit differently. I'm trying my best as your mayor to keep our community together as one Clearview Township. I really like this recommendation number 1 because it very clearly states that Clearview Township does own and does insure all the buildings.
I have no objection to the intent of recommendation 1 myself. In that I'd like to see all the halls renovated, and it's just that in my mind it's contingent on successful discussion on the next recommendations like cost sharing. But I'll hold my comments for now. We'll see how this goes.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. I also appreciate people bringing forward their comments at any time. So thank you. Members of council, anything further on recommendation number 1? We're going to go through all of these. Yes, Councillor Walker, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I guess nobody's raised the question of why all 7. I understand, and I realize that COVID has hit us at a wrong time. For the last 2 years, we haven't had an opportunity to see what these halls can do. But we're going to move ahead with almost $6 million in renovations. And my concern is that in 2 years' time down the road, we have a volunteer problem. We have rising costs of maintenance and operations in these facilities. The cost of rentals we're going to have to look at and I think increase. And if we go past that threshold, we're not going to get the support of rentals. And the commitment of the hall boards to share in the fundraising, as Councillor Patterson has stated, I have that concern that they need to be on board with that whole process. And the other thing was, and it's been addressed in some of the drawings, was we have some of these smaller halls that we have a parking problem. And we have to facilitate and remove those off the main roads and put them inland. I'm tossed. I understand the importance of the halls in those communities. And at one point in time, they were the community. But people have changed, directions have changed, priorities have changed. So I am a little concerned that spending that kind of money and moving forward, that in 2 or 3 years' time, we could end up with 3 of these halls or 4 not in operation again. So I just wanted to bring that forward as a thought. I do have an issue with the costs. I'm concerned about the future, and unfortunately, the crystal ball will not let me look ahead to see what is going to happen. And maybe that's a good thing. I don't know, but I'm just a little concerned about our costs and those questions that we could be having some problems down the road.
I appreciate your comments, Councillor Walker. Do you have any recommendations, or do you have anything we should do? I mean, you can support recommendation number 1, or you can not support recommendation number 1, and we'll let democracy prevail as we add these to item number 4 of the primary recommendation. That's what I'm trying to get to right now.
Yeah. No, I personally don't support all 7, but I'm only one counselor, so that's my view, and I'm leaving it up to the rest to either make comment or just move forward.
Okay, thank you. And I'll give you one comment. I too am also very worried about the future as well. You know, I mean, the purpose of these halls is to celebrate our heritage and our communities and our identity as a agricultural rural community. And yet it seems like hourly we continue to change from an agricultural community to a more urban center all the time. And it's becoming more and more frustrating. So I hear you. I see there's a hand up from our CAO. Mr. CAO, how are you?
Good, thank you, Your Worship. Just listening to the councillors speak and ask questions, they're raising some good points as it relates to recommendation number 1. Really, there should be another word following it in accordance with the next recommendation. So for example, in recommendation number 2, it talks about separate agreements. So then you can sit down and determine exactly what each hall is going to do as it relates to recommendation number 3, recommendation number 4, recommendation number 5, and recommendation number 6. So recommendation number 1, I would suggest, should have a word in accordance with the next recommendations. And that should put it together in the sense that we probably will work on, if certain halls are in a better position to move more quickly right now, maybe we could do two this year that's recommended in recommendation number 5, maybe 2 the next. And as we work through these agreements, we'll know which ones are going to stay on and maybe move to completion or maybe repurpose. I think some people may be looking at maybe investing in a local park that's nearby or something of that nature. But this is a starting point that really leads to the agreements of where we can negotiate the other pieces.
All right, Mr. CAO, I appreciate your input and I appreciate that comment. What I look at it is that while council may approve all of these recommendations, council could approve all these recommendations laid out right here in front of us, including the and/or option A, option B, this question at the end. Council could put all these on this motion and council can support it. What that does is it takes us to another meeting to finalize. And the question of finalization will have to do with the fact that the staff are now going to be given some direction to create these operating agreements, to have the discussions with the hall boards about the cost sharing, to have an understanding that the future operating budgets of the Recreation and Culture Department will include these inspection fees. I think that's a pretty significant add to the budget right there every year. So there's a whole lot of items that are all going to be individually presented in this motion. And to Councillor Walker's point, I'm also concerned about the future because we do not know, we cannot predict what volunteers may or may not actively engage in supporting these halls, and or whether the demographics would show that people want to continue to operate and use the halls. That's the other aspect. You know, like I'll give you a small example, and that is Sunnydale Hall is well known as a card game sort of place. They have a lot of cards and they do a great job with it. It's a real social thing. COVID has been horrible, wiped out the card game. Let's just say there might be less tables of cards when they finally get reopened again, because perhaps either people aren't here with us anymore or they're just not interested in doing it anymore. So we don't know. So we would hope that people want to return to these halls and continue to use them. But, you know, this is a big decision. This is a tough one for sure for all the members of council. And we as members have heard from the community several times from these hall boards and it's a want to keep these halls. So Mr. CAO, I appreciate what you're saying. I look at it that each of these recommendations could, you know, could lead into the next one. I'm not sure though that they're all relevant to standing if and the next recommendation passes, or if and the next recommendation is approved. I think that we have to be nimble enough as a council and as a municipality to react to these demographic changes, react to changes of the volunteers. I think the clarity of number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4 clearly tell us that we're prepared to make all these steps. We're prepared to do the work as a well, we're prepared to put the staff through the work to prepare these agreements and meet with them to bring them back for council to ratify these agreements. These all date back to the memorandum of understanding that was put in the days of Mayor Ferguson, and we had all the hall boards here, and they all signed it in one big meeting. But it was that singular document doesn't necessarily fit the needs of all of these halls. So I absolutely appreciate where Terry and his staff have come up with this recommendation to help us. So anyway, I'm sorry, I'm going off track. John Ferguson, you're suggesting that we have an and/or
I think right after recommendation number 1, you say you basically saying this is how you want to proceed, but it's dependent upon the other recommendations. So I would say just after standards, right, in accordance with recommendation number 2, in accordance with the other recommendations, because that's going to form part of your agreements, all the other ones. So you're going to have those discussions with the each hall board to see if they agree. And if there's a commitment request, that'll give you a sense of the commitment by the volunteers, if they think it's something that they can do. And it's a good tool to use because it's not overly expensive for them, but it does demonstrate their commitment. And I think that's what council wants to see. So I think all of this together can really form part of the agreement of number 2. So number 1 is in accordance with the rest. That's how I see it, is to trying to make it as clear as possible. But after council makes a decision on this, staff still has to go back and work on these agreements with the hall boards.
For certain, to be honest, if we did nothing further, if we stopped this entire process, I would suggest that we need to do that first to get the agreements redone. Anyway,
and this shows that council's sincere in moving forward, but they want to measure the risk. They want to make sure there's commitment, and they want to measure the risk as they go along.
So back to the original motion, council. Thank you, Mr. CAO. The original motion, item 4, says that council direct staff to implement the following staff recommendations from PCR 002-2021. And we could say recommendation number 1, in accordance with recommendation number 2, in accordance with recommendation number 3, etc., if council agrees to include these in the final recommendation. Is that your suggestion, John?
It is, and if they come back and they want some slight changes, we can consider that at the time of approving the agreement. But you want to put everything down, so this is really a part of where we want to go. All these steps should be considered.
Okay. All right, members of council, any questions on the recommendations from the CAO? Connie, I see you got your card.
Well, no, I wasn't actually I agree with John. I think that we should do that, but I agree with recommendation number 1 because I look to the future, and to me, the future says if we renovate all these halls and the volunteers, the boards decide to disband or there's nobody to run them, we put them up for sale. And because we renovated them, we're going to make our money back. So let me look at that future. I would like to be positive about it. And I think that for the most part, our halls are on board. Maybe there'll be, a different story when we find out what the percentage will be or what council decides. But for now, I'm looking to the future too. And honestly, I don't know about the other halls as much, although I think Avening will be going for a long time. But I know Sunnydale has rented quite a lot for weddings and things tentatively now because of the construction. But no, I'm good with this. Thank you.
Okay. Do I see Councillor Lamers with your hand up?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, the way John explained it, it helped out. One leads to the next, and I'm looking to the future, and 3 or 4 of our towns are all expanding. So we're going to be getting new blood, new families, hopefully that want to join into our communities and help keep these halls going. But we need a commitment from the hall boards in order to keep them all going. So the way John explained it, Lincoln 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, we need to get them all on board with this. If our hall boards aren't with us, they're not worth doing. So we got to get our hall boards all on board for this with a commitment.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Lamers. I appreciate that. Councillor McKechnie, I want to apologize. I just saw you flashing there, and I moved my screen over, and then I saw you with your hand up. So you weren't on my screen, okay? So we're doing this split screen thing. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Go
No
ahead.
problem, Your Worship, but I'd appreciate it if you don't use Councillor McKechnie and flashing in the same
Wow.
sentence. Anyway, I was having a lot of problems with recommendation number 1 initially until after the CAO spoke. I just think that we need an exit strategy. Recommendation number 1 was sort of to my mind, locking us in. And I was concerned about some sort of exit strategy if we don't have community support or hall board support for one or more of these halls. And I'm fully in agreement. If the community's on board, if the hall board's on board, yeah, I support them all. But if I'm just afraid that there's one or more hall boards and communities that aren't going to support it, and we're going to be sort of locked in to doing the renovations, doing the upgrades, and then and we're going to be paying the full shot. So I like what John has said, and I don't see any downside to it, and I think it works out to be a good exit strategy for us if we don't get the support from any community, any particular community. So I would be willing to see that those changes made. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councillor McKechnie. Excellent. Good review of that. I appreciate that. I do see some hands up, but I'm going to go to the clerk first because she did flash her card in front of me. So there you go, Councillor. We're going to go to the clerk.
Thank you, Mayor Measure. Sorry, I just had to unmute myself there. Just to support what the CEO Ferguson said and what other councillors are reiterating, I can include as part 4 of the recommendation that recommendation number 1 as amended to include the sentence in accordance and conjunction with the other recommendation as follows. And then council can list the other recommendations so they're all connected.
So you're adding a couple extra lines there. I just have written down in accordance with. And
yeah,
so
I didn't know if you guys wanted to also include in conjunction with, or if you felt that in accordance with perfectly outlined what you guys were wanting to do.
In accordance, conjunction, you legal guys, how do you like those words? Which one do you want to go with? I'm going to go to John because he knows this stuff. John?
It reminds me of the a cartoon I used to watch years ago, Conjunction Junction, and I'm Just a Bill on Capitol Hill.
That's right.
Anyway, no, I look, it's either or. I think both words would work. And so if you want both, or if you want to go with one, it's fine. I would add, and I appreciate the comment from Councillor McKechnie and also Councillor Leishman, where they talked about really a sunset clause that should be written into agreements in the event that they can mutually agree that they may not be using it anymore, or it may not be being used and for so long, and you could have perhaps a measurement of that and write it into an agreement that it makes sense for the community that you would have a sunset clause. You're not out to hurt them in any way if they're using it, but it's to make the change and pivot if you have to.
Okay. Well, perhaps that could be something you've written into the actual agreements that would be then presented to the 7 hall boards.
That's correct. You could take that as a part of our agreement, separate agreement arrangements with each group.
Yeah, just to be clear, we would deal with 7 hall boards on the agreement, 6 of them are the subject of the AODA renovations that we've been talking about for months. So, but we do have 7 hall boards that operate as independent boards. All right. John Lamers, I see your hand still up. Did you have something else?
No, it shouldn't be.
It's there. It's gone now. Okay, thanks.
Oh.
Just checking. Tom, hello, Councillor Patterson. Go ahead.
Just so there's no doubt, CAO Ferguson's proposed amendment captured very nicely what I was getting at.
Yeah, it did actually, and I appreciate. I was kind of thinking of that, Tom, when you presented that. Yeah, no, good job. I appreciate that. Exactly. My question now is to members of council. Are we simply just going to go with all of these, or is there any question about any of these recommendations? So let's just review. Yes, Terry, go ahead.
May I finish explaining the 8 recommendations before you guys have those questions?
Sure.
Awesome. Thank you.
Back to you.
Thank you very much. So recommendation number 2, as you can see, staff really wanted to capture the fact that right now, and I have it here on one of my other screens, is that there is an existing agreement in place. It was signed back in June of 2011, and it was one agreement for all 7 halls combined. So staff here is recommending that we separate that one agreement into 7 separate agreements for each hall. And again, those agreements would capture what council just mentioned about sunset clauses, about what happens if scenarios. So that could all be included in those agreements. From my understanding from the hall boards, it's been 10 years and they're in agreement about doing new agreements. I was looking at the list here, and most of the folks that signed that agreement are either no longer with those halls, and or there's perhaps just a few left. I think perhaps previous Mayor Vandercruz is probably the only one left. So it's obviously time to renew those agreements. So that's recommendation number 2. Recommendation number 3 is to continue to hire Burnsides to complete the full engineering drawings and prepare those for tender. So what we've seen today was just conceptual designs with some estimates, but there's still another phase to that where they have to actually take those conceptual designs and make full engineering drawings. So there's a cost to that, of course, and have it ready for either a tender or a request for proposal quotation for the public, which is part of the next steps that council has to decide upon. Recommendation number 4, while going through this process with the hall boards, all the halls that are expecting elevators have expressed concerns of the inspection costs. They also expressed concerns about the maintenance costs, but the maintenance costs, you don't know what that is until it actually breaks down. But the inspection costs, we know what those are. So we've estimated in my report that those costs are approximately $1,500 a hall per year. That's just to have the folks come on site and actually inspect them. So you're looking at about $7,000 to $9,000 for that. Our recommendation is for Clearview not to put that burden back on the hall boards, as it will have a huge impact on their fundraising, on their ability to raise money. So our recommendation is for Clearview Town, is for the council to support that cost. The 5th recommendation is to renovate 2 halls per year. We know we'd have 6. We feel, in our professional opinion, that doing all 6 in 1 year would be a significant challenge. Even 3, 4, or 5 would be very difficult. Again, in conjunction with number 8, with respect to being able to manage the construction of all these sites at once. So again, 2 halls per year. And part of the next steps is to decide which 2 halls would go first, perhaps which 2 halls would go second, and which 2 halls would go third. The 7th recommendation, Your Worship, in council is to give direction to staff to continue to aggressively source capital grants. One of our gaps that we had in the last couple of years is we had the inability to actually apply for grants because we didn't have current information. We didn't know which halls we were applying for. We didn't know how much in 2022 dollars. There was too many outstanding questions for us to actually apply for grants. Now that we have this report, if council provides direction, we now have all the pertinent information to be able to actually apply for grants. So that's very positive. And as you know, your worship, I have an excellent team behind me who are very creative in applying for grants, but I knew that we didn't have nearly near the amount of information that was required to actually fulfill an actual application. The second part about that recommendation number 7 regarding grants, your worship, is we know in discussion with our ministers and with our provincial or federal organizations that they do provide us grants from time to time, but those are very minuscule amounts. We're looking at a $6 million project, and there are some programs out there that might give us $10,000, $20,000. And so if we do apply for those minimal amount of grants, it does prevent us from applying for a potential bigger grant that might become available in the future. So we apply for a $20,000 grant, we get it. 3 months later, there's a new grant out that's for $1 million or $500,000, and we would be unable to apply for that grant as we have already received one for this project. So we've been very patient, waiting for this information, obviously, but also patient and waiting for that real big, good grant to come out that's going to really pay off for the citizens of Clearview. And finally, recommendation number 8 is again based on our thought bubble. Is there's and we broke it down to 2 different options. One would be for the CAO and the Human Resources Department to review internally to see if we have the staff with skills and or expertise to actually oversee the project and also represent the township's best interests for all 6 halls. We may have somebody internally that might be able to do that work for us to be that on-site project manager. Or option B, if we do not, perhaps there's a council can hire a capital projects contractor or manager to oversee the township's best interests. If option A or B is not done, then we will be hiring the services of our engineers to be our on-site project managers for us. We need to have one by law. Somebody has to represent our best interests. And so if it's not option A or B, it will be Burnside's at their rate of pay, of course. So your worship, with that, I will give the floor back to you. I'm available to answer any questions regarding all 8 recommendations. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Now, Terry, thanks for reviewing that. I think perhaps you've speeded us along here a little better. And thank you for doing that. Members of council, do you have any questions to Terry about the recommendations as presented? And I'd like to hear if you are agreeable to add all of these to recommendation number 4 from the primary recommendation. Members of council.
So your worship, I really apologize. I did skip a recommendation. Maybe
let's speak about 6. Yeah, go with that, Terry.
I apologize, your worship. I did miss recommendation number 6. So again, recommendation number 6 is that Clearview Township set a fundraising commitment from the hall boards of an amount between 10 to 20% of the total construction cost, financed over 10 years. As you know, your worship, through the brainstorming session, council had proposed a number of 25%. There was no real justification for that number. It was just a number that we can base on to get discussions going with our volunteers and our hall boards. While going through the process with the hall boards and listening to their concerns, 25% was a number that was expressed as a higher end number. Staff recommendation is that council would pick a number between 10 to 20. And of course, maybe even 0 is an option, but this is staff recommendation is somewhere between 10 to 20. Thank you.
Okay, that's a staff recommendation. Just to be clear about that. Council can obviously change that right now if the council wishes to. So let's take attention, council, to recommendation number 6. And I'm interested to know if what your thoughts are on recommendation number 6. Members of council. Tom.
Want me to stop sharing screen, your worship?
No, that's all right. I can see everybody. I think I'm good now.
Okay.
So I think this is an important part of the agreement, and from what I can understand from many of the board's earlier discussions for sure. They thought it was reasonable to have to pay a portion of the renovation costs. So we've got a target of 10 to 20%. So there would be flexibility. John Ferguson and myself had a discussion on this afternoon, and it really was about not just trying to understand what our objective was to try to build some flexibility into it. I think that's what I heard, for example, from Councillor Leishman, that, you know, we should be, you know, confident that they can support us, and in this case, financial. And I think Councillor Walker suppressed some concern about future risk. So we recognize some boards are in a better off position than others. So my first question to Terry would be, do you think this is something that all would pay the same rate? Or in your negotiations with each board, as you build each separate agreement, would you adjust the 10 to 20% and perhaps even the financial period of 10 years to something that's more acceptable to each board, so that their board can be renovated and stay open?
Terry, good question. Thank you, Tom. Terry?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Patterson. Unfortunately, I don't have a recommendation or an answer for you, Councillor Patterson. This is a council-led decision. My recommendation is between 10 to 20. If council wants to have one number consistent for all 6 halls, that's up to you. Or if council wants to have a different number and negotiate a different number with each hall, again, that's up to council. I personally don't have a preference either way, and I can't provide you an answer. Sorry.
Okay. Well, that's okay. I understand that you know, you're handing it off to us, and based on all the good work you've done, so I appreciate that. I would then, my comment would then be that so that I'm not interfering with your thoughts or all of your staff's work. My combination would be that when we go into the negotiation table with each of the boards, that we have a range, not a fix. 10 to 20 is a good starting point. And that we also look at keep it at 10 years. I think that's a reasonable period to have boards really think about the commitment, because that would mean they'd be going through 2 or 3 boards, passing the baton, that sort of thing. So they really have to feel like this possible. But I would suggest that we keep the target in range. 10 to 20 is okay with me for now, and use that as something that we negotiate with the boards to insert into the agreement. The other area that I did think about was, rather than, I haven't really developed this idea. I just wondered if this is where not all boards serve the same size community, nor do all boards serve communities have the same interests. And all boards do not have the same skill in raising finances, not because of their own efforts, but perhaps from their community. So would we give consideration to adjusting the cost of the finances to let's say, an area assessment of their hall service area, if you like?
I'm going to interject here, Tom. I don't agree with that because the intent of recommendations that come from this council are for the whole of Clearview Township. And while the boards represent their halls and the interest of individual halls, I don't think that we should be bringing the assessment of the individual areas into play here. This is about Clearview Township. So well, I understand the logic behind it. I can actually understand it very well, Tom. I just think that it's kind of goes against the objectives of what Clearview Township's trying to do, and that is to service all of Clearview Township. So
well, it's fine. Like I said, it's not a mature idea, but
yeah.
The reason why I thought of it is because I when I look at all six halls do not have equal ability to raise the funds. As a matter of fact, some halls can raise more money than some other halls.
Agreed.
And when we're all looking after Clearview Township, we all look after each other. And we're all in the same purpose there, providing a place where a community, the various communities within Clearview can have a community hall. So that was the only thought that I had, is that there may be some halls that say, you know what, that 10%, not much for us to raise over 10 years every year. And then some would say, see, I don't know if I can afford to support my renovation because I just can't see us raising that money. That's all. Just like to keep the door open. But those are my comments.
Okay, I appreciate that. If I can jump in on Terry's comment, and that is that setting this is something that council needs to do. The recommendation says that Clearview Township set a fundraising commitment from the hall boards. I would suggest to you, Terry, that the word set needs to be transferred into negotiate, and that the negotiate needs to be part of how we said get to a new memorandum of understanding with all the halls about this renovation. Because each of them could be, as Tom points out, correctly so, that each of them have different abilities to do this type of fundraising. So I think that perhaps that word set should be negotiate. Clearview Township negotiate a fundraising commitment, and that, you know, again, as part of CAO Ferguson's recommendation, that the in accordance with stands in this entire document. So that's where I'm looking at it. And I also think that giving staff the ability to work with the 10 to 20% is a good sort of target. And Terry's very generous in the way he commented about the original 25%. I revealed that to several of the boards when we met with them, talking about all the thought bubbles, that the 25% was a number that came up from this council, so that we can continue to move on and have this process move forward. And if, in all honesty, it wasn't fleshed out well enough to get a real understanding about what that impact is. So hearing that feedback from the volunteers was very helpful. And so I do support the ideal that we negotiate a more suitable percentage that they could show as support or not across the whole township. I see John Ferguson's got your hand up. Did I miss somebody else? I think we'll go right to John first, and I'll look for other hands. Mr. Ferguson. Sorry, I think you're muted. You're muted, John. Sorry.
First of all, I want to say a lot of thoughts gone into the report. There's a lot of good information, and I want to thank Terry and the volunteers and everybody that worked on gathering this, and the engineers. As it relates to 6, I think whenever we go into a discussion with each board, we'll get a sense of the area that they serve and how many people they draw. They can give us an impression of what they're doing, what kind of income they're making. We'll take that into consideration. Plus, the flexibility, I think, relates to, let's say they were willing to pay 10% over 10 years and then thought, well, maybe we'll do it over 20, that we would bring the flexibility options to the table. And so we'll be mindful of the comments that are made around here. And I'm sure Terry would work with them to, come up with the best arrangement that works for the volunteers and works for the municipality. So I just want to pass that along. They're good comments and ones that are not lost on. Talk with the hall boards.
Okay. Yes, Terry.
Thank you, Your Worship. And also to add to recommendation number 6 that I forgot to mention earlier, is that when 25% was a number that was thrown out there, we didn't know exactly what the total cost of those renovations would be. And neither did the halls. When we presented the information to them, there was full FADS estimates that were in there, numbers up in the 1.3 plus inflation. So now, as of today, we have much more accurate information that now when we put 10 or 20% on the table, they know exactly or pretty close to how much they're going to commit to. Back in 2021, when we gave them the 25% number, they didn't really know what that number really was. They will today. If we negotiate new agreements, they'll have a good idea of what that number is. Divide that by 10 years and they'll know what their commitment is.
Thank you, Terry. Members of council, are you comfortable with my recommendation to go to the word negotiate instead of the word set underneath recommendation number 6? Thumbs up from Councillor Patterson. Got a thumb from Lamers. Where are we at? You guys understand what I'm looking at? Give me some yeses or thumbs. Okay, so again, because we're workshopping this together, if I can just ask the clerk to make note of that will be the word negotiate. Thank you very much. All right, that's a really good understanding. Let's wrap this up by talking about recommendation number 8. Can I just go directly to the CAO first? Because this recommendation number 8, part A, as your mayor, this has actually bothered me a little bit in the fact that we have an awful lot of projects that we're doing in the next little while. And I know that the halls are really important, and this is what Terry has been focused on. And I met with Terry in his office, and I shared with him, I said, Terry, we got a new little fire hall, public works building. We got a big water pipe going on. We got a lot of work in this township coming up. And Mr. CAO, can you give me an idea, what we can do to, within the human resources available, if we were to approve option A? John.
Yeah, I'd like to pursue it, and we have some ideas. We would have to discuss it and how we would make the arrangements to put that together. But absolutely, I'd like to pursue option A, and in the absence of option A, I'll pursue option B. But I think we can proceed with option A. I think there's an opportunity here.
Okay. Council, you got any questions in regards to this recommendation, which is sort of tied into the small hall project? Anybody got any questions to the CAO or Terry? I'm not sure if Tammy's on the call, but maybe she is. I don't know. Tom, go ahead.
It got me thinking when I saw it, because it's a good point. Do we have the staff to do it? I like the idea, actually, consistency of management and one source contact for all our contractors. I like the idea of the capital projects. As it's written, I'm assuming it's just for the period of the construction of the halls. But I would, if I was supporting B, I would sort of put as a secondary task to evaluate whether or not, as we go forward, we need a full-time contract capital projects manager. And we could decide at the end when all the halls were built. But no, if the hall, if the staff can meet all these objectives, as John said, and wants to proceed that way, I'm okay with that. But I have no objection if the staff came back and said we can't handle it all to proceed with a contract manager.
All right, good point, Tom. Again, in my conversations with Terry and with John Ferguson about this kind of point is that, we do have an awful lot of projects that are underway. Some pretty complex ones, pretty straightforward ones. The challenge here is that we keep drawing upon the resources of RJ Burnside, and that continues, frankly. As much as we all appreciate their work, it still costs us money. And so if we have a better way to manage actually delivering this work through the HR resources that we have, as well as the abilities of some of our senior managers to communicate, I think that works better when we have people that are kind of working in our building rather than continually on the phone to the company Burnside to do this project management work. So that's why I think this is a good opportunity for us to sort of flush this out. And I was really pleased to see Terry put this into the recommendations, by the way. Terry, thank you for doing that.
If I may, I would add that my experience, of course, John would know better, and senior staff would know better, but I think, without naming names, I think everybody knows, I think we've got good project management talent on staff. But we'd have to free that person up to be the manager, and so I assume that's what the CAO would do.
I think Tom, without sort of tipping the hat here, we would want to make sure that we give staff the opportunity to exercise option A, and they can report back to us, because obviously that would be a decision that's outside of this recommendation. But I find it important that it's in here now, so we at least hear about it, and that council can give direction to the CAO in this case to move ahead with investigating them.
So why don't you just put a linking statement in, if I may, just to link the A and B together, that do the first, and pending a discovery that the more resources will be required, go to B.
Okay.
Come back.
Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor Measures. So I've added on to the recommendation number 8 that it's option A. However, if option A cannot be realized, then option B be explored by staff.
Okay. It's excellent. Anybody else with any questions on option 8 or this whole discussion point? All right. Wow, we're really doing well here, team. I really appreciate your patience in getting here. I see that we have, Terry, can you move back down again? Back to those recommendations. I want to finalize this, that all of those recommendations are going to be added to recommendation number 4 in our primary motion. Any objection? Looking for objections. Tom, speak, go ahead.
Just one clarification quickly in recommendation 3,
Okay.
that Clearview Township hire the services of RJ Burnside to complete the full engineering drawings to be prepared for tender or request for proposal quotations for the public. Are those 2 things or 1?
Terry, what would that be?
For you,
Both?
Your Worship, Councilor Patterson, that would be 1 thing.
Okay, perfect.
Makes
Thank you.
sense. Thank you. Any other members of council have any questions on these recommendations to complete the primary direction? Okay.
Are we going to select the 2 tonight?
That has yet to come to the next meeting, I believe. Finalize
Okay.
direction at the next meeting.
All right.
All right. Does that make sense? Terry, Terry, go ahead. Terry?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. And that's actually an excellent segue, if I may, Your Worship.
Sure.
Into the next steps, because to answer Councilor Patterson's question, it is recommended that, you can, if council wants to discuss it tonight, you sure can. But it's been recommended that we include it as part of the next steps, as part of the next meeting. So again, if I can just clarify very quickly, Your Worship, that the next meeting, part of the next steps, would be to make a decision on the staff recommendations above. You're obviously perhaps approving all 8 recommendations, but maybe we'll have some more information by then to finalize a few of those recommendations, i.e. number 8. Determine the process for receiving tenders. Will it be a full tender, or will it be request for quotation? And there's a difference there, and we can bring back to council what those differences are. And next steps, number 3, is to determine the construction guidelines, and again, may perhaps create MOUs with each hall board regarding the construction phases. There's a lot of questions out there, Your Worship, from the hall boards. They know they're going to be under construction for 6 to 8 to 12 months. They might lose some revenue. What does that mean? Some of them may want to be on site themselves as project managers, and we're going to need to clarify that with them as well. So there's a very important step there that needs to be done. Next step, number 4. Sorry, I'm lost in my numbers here. 4. Create MOUs with each hall board regarding the operating and financial commitment. So again, that's part of number 2 above. Next step, number 5, to finalize the financing agreements and the bylaws for the project as a whole, and the commitment by the taxpayers of Clearview Township. So working hand in hand with Treasury with respect to the actual financing agreements, and making sure that they have the direction to be able to finance the balance of the amount. And finally, as part of the next meeting, as part of next steps, will be to determine which community hall gets renovated first, second, third, fourth, and fifth, and sixth. So again, I just wanted to reiterate those important steps for council as well as the public. Thank you, Your Worship.
All right, that's good. I think the one that'll be very interesting to me when we get to that step will be the financial arrangements and the funding models that Kelly McDonald and her team can put together. And also we can, council, you just went through the budget process. You recall we contribute regularly to the reserve fund. And we can use the tools that we've used in the past, such as the library work, to transfer those, annual payments into the reserve fund by making them annual payments to pay off the debt for these type of work. So, but again, the debt will not be all at once. The debt could be just delivered over every 2-year period. It's just a matter of creating a good strategy that the Treasury Department can lay out for us and future councils to take a look at. All right, thank you, Terry, for those next steps. Is anything else, anything further on the report that council needs? All right, you guys, you've been amazing. Wow, no more sharing a screen. Everybody's here. Clerk Helmke.
Thank you, Mayor Measures. Just let me know if you would like me just to read that portion of the fourth part of the recommendation, just to be clear of what council is approving tonight.
For certain, for certain. Council, you have it in front of you. Recommendation 1, which is receive the report. Recommendation number 2 is receive the RJ Burnside renovations report. And then recommendation number 3, council hereby schedule a special meeting to finalize the direction and next steps with staff as determined in the report for all 6 community halls. And then item number 4, over to you, Clerk Helmke.
Okay, recommendation number 1 as amended to include the sentence in accordance and conjunction with the other recommendations as follows. Recommendation number 2, recommendation number 3, recommendation number 4, recommendation number 5, recommendation number 6 as amended to remove the word set and replace with the word negotiate a fundraising commitment from the hall boards, recommendation number 7, and recommendation number 8, option A. However, if option A cannot be realized, then option B be explored by staff.
Council, any questions? Are we good? Tom, you're good? All right.
I was just moving.
Yeah, thank you. You going to move this, Tom?
Yeah.
Outstanding. Moved by Councillor Patterson, seconded by Councillor Leishman.
What did you think I was going to do?
No, I wasn't sure where you were going with that. Because I'm happy to see that, Tom. Thank you. I'm happy to see that. So I'm going to go with Patterson and Leishman as the movers and seconders on this very long, extensive motion. Council, I'd ask for your indulgence that I'm not going to read it again. Is there anything further now that we have a mover and seconder on the floor? All right. Council, I'll call the motion. Those in favor? That carries. Thank you very much, members of council. Thank you, staff. I look forward to the next meeting on this exciting topic. And we've, to the public, this is a complicated process in order to deal with these old buildings. And we're doing the best we can to deliver what the community has asked for. So I think that we're moving in the right direction. And I think we have the financial plan that's going to be developed to demonstrate how we can do this. All right, council, I'm going to take that report and put it over here on my desk. I'm going to look up at the clock and realize it's 10 minutes to 9. So let's do another item. And then I'm going to then ask for a brief recess because I've been sitting here far too long. Council, we're going to move to fire and emergency services. We have a report. This is a review of the Simcoe Promax Fire Services review. Something that the Deputy Mayor, myself, the CAO, the Fire Chief have participated in on your behalf. This is a result of a County of Simcoe review that's been going on for some time regarding services in the county. So the recommendation reads, be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby 1, receive report FD01-2022. It's the County of Simcoe Promax Fire Services review, and it's dated March 7, 2022. And item 2, that after reviewing the information provided by Promax Consulting for the County Fire Service review, that Council supports the analysis expressed by the Fire Chief and the Chief Administrative Officer within the staff report to the Mayor and Council. The Chief, hello Chief, thanks for waiting. And the CAO is here as well. Let's put this on the floor and then we'll have a good debate. Is there a mover and seconder on the motion, please? Roderick, second. Lamers, thank you very much. Johns, the 2 Johns. Chief Payment, nice to see you, and thank you for your comments and your review of this Promax Consulting review. Go ahead, Chief.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think the report in general is pretty straightforward. As council is aware, this was a very large picture item with respect to trying to find efficiencies in the county's fire services in general. So as council is also aware, there is a host of fire departments and makeups throughout the county, and the very general approach that POMAX took with their recommendations was simply to try and find efficiencies where possible. So in conjunction with CAO Ferguson, the mayor and the deputy mayor, we did meet to kind of discuss some of the items. And as a result, these were the items that we did come up with. And at the end of the day, specific to our municipality, we do feel it is managed and run quite well with respect to the emergency services side of things. The biggest thing that we do have to offer could be the sharing of more data. But throughout this report, and to the frustration of the consultants, one of the things that they did identify was that there is several different data collection programs throughout the county, and it was somewhat difficult to compile and composite all the data. So there was a bit of reference given to the county potentially embarking on a system that would better encompass data collection. However, there was no further discussion on that. So as it sits right now, it is certainly believed by myself and the CAO that the department is running very efficiently, and some of the recommendations, such as exploring amalgamation opportunities with our neighbors, just simply isn't really valid at this time due to the different makeup, and more specifically the fact that the majority of our neighbors do employ career firefighters, which would certainly create some logistical issues to the department. So that's basically the brief overview of the report and the analysis, and I would certainly open the floor to any questions. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Chief. Members of council, if you've had a chance to review the report, any questions to the chief and or the CAO? I'm sorry, John, did you want to say something, CAO Ferguson? I should have asked.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. I think Chief Pavement covered it, and I think he captured really everybody's thoughts that were a part of the process. And I guess the differences between each community and even the land mass, like we have a very large geographical area, and how we would work with other departments is unique. We have mutual aid agreements, and everything seems to be working well with respect to that. We're always interested in finding more efficiencies. And but overall, I think I have to give credit to Rory. He really put the report together, and I think he did a good job of it.
Thank you very much for that. All right, members of council, you got any questions to the chief or the CAO about the report? Okay, I see Councillor McKechnie and then Councillor Walker. Oops, there you
go. Okay, sorry, Your Worship. My other laptop ran out of battery power, so now I'm struggling with my iPad here. So just bear with me. It was a good report, Chief, and I fully support it. I'm familiar with the amalgamation of the paramedic services, and it may look clean, but there's a lot of downside to it too. And not least of which is the morale of the employees. And when you have amalgamation and you have an employee come in and start their shift, and they have no idea where they're going to be going in the area for the next 8 hours, 10 hours sometimes, and they could be sent to another township. And so anyway, it does affect their morale. And I don't think the cost savings are that great. So I think the chief's report is a good one, and I fully support it. So great, thanks.
All right, good comments. Thank you very much for that. Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Your Worship. Upon reading this, I have to feel that we might be looking at more of a regional fire department down the road. Kind of strikes me as back a few years ago, they talked about a lot of this same thing. And So in other words, I don't know, maybe somebody can enlighten me, and hopefully we don't go that direction, but looks to me like we're looking towards a regional fire department with major chiefs and then a lot of co-captains throughout the county. So I hope I'm wrong, because bigger is not necessarily better. And I hope that I know sharing resources and helping each other out is paramount to that fire service. But I don't want to see us go to a regional site type of a system.
Thank you for your comments. I would just add that I also agree we should not be going to a regional service, but in the chief's report and in his comments here just now, we commented about the significant differences between our department and our neighboring departments to the north. And whereas we're actually much more familiar and closer in operation to our neighbors to the south, our, Agilis Hussaranio and Essa, Springwater, much more similar to the style of operation that we are, rather than, as the chief calls it, career firefighters who are part of a arbitrated union, and they have a different funding model. So it's or a different wage parity model. So it's definitely enlightening to see the differences between the two. Certainly in my conversations with the mayors in our region, this is an ongoing sort of irritant to them, is the differences in the arbitration protocols that are available for firefighters. So it's pretty difficult. Anybody else with any comments or questions to the chief or the CAO? All right. Just for information, this is also something that's being discussed at all of the municipalities of Simcoe County. They're all been asked to participate in this. I believe our clerk gave notice to the clerk in the county that we would be finally getting to this. They were hoping to get it by the end of February, but we're getting to it at this point, and it'll be shared with the county committee once the resolution is passed here. All right, I'm prepared to call the motion if there's nothing further. Members of council, thank you, chief. Thank you, CAO. Members of council, you've heard the motion. I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much. Thanks, chief. Okie dokie. And by the way, it is POMAX. I did call it ProMax. It's not ProMax, it's POMAX. Anyway, I pronounced it wrong. Council, it's just before 9. I would like to take at least a 5-minute break. Get up, walk around my desk, go get a glass of water. And I'm calling a recess, and we will return at 9:05.